Yo, Atlas speaking, and welcome to part 3 of What If I Was Reborn into the Bleach universe and became the insane Vasto Lord. Let the tale begin.
Chapter 61, A Wild Chase. Beneath the blanket of the Garganta's pitch-black sky, Kazuya's group strolled without a rush, their casual pace showing their relaxed mental state. Yo, why are you still in your resurrection? It's gonna drain you dry, Mila Rose asked, her voice echoing in the darkness. Sun shook her head. I can't run around naked. My skin is not as thick as yours. Her base form also left her naked like Mila Rose. The dark-skinned Arrancar was still running around in Kazuya's shirt. Mila Rose rolled her eyes. Fuck you. Yoruichi let out a soft laugh. The playful banter between them was light, a sharp contrast to the stern interactions among most Shinigami groups. Yoruichi found herself understanding why Kazuya risked so much to save them. You're quite a close-knit group, aren't you? How did you manage to welcome a man into your fold? She knew of Mila Rose's obvious bias towards men, and this intrigued her even more. My integration went more smoothly than I expected, Kazuya said. Only Mila Rose showed some resistance in accepting me. Oh, what did you do? Saved her life? Charmed her with your voice? Shaking his head, he replied with a playful tone, I waved my magic wand and cast a love spell. Now she is even ready to have my children. I went overboard. The shocked outcry of Mila Rose echoed across the void. Who would have your kids? This guy can't stop spouting lies. Ha ha ha, Yoruichi laughed and pointed at the egg held by Harribel. What's the story of that egg? It's the byproduct of Mila Rose's intense passion for me. So it's her egg. He is spitting bullshit again. Mila Rose retorted. It's his egg. His Zanpakuto. I got this sword after I became an Arrancar. He got a friggin' egg. Yoruichi's eyes widened. You are telling me you defeated the King of Hollows without your Zanpakuto? It was a tough fight, though. I couldn't have done it without you. So, thanks, Shoin-san. His sincere smile and smooth voice were a disastrous combination that made her heart flutter. Having the thick skin of a crocodile, she stared at him without any emotion. Don't mention it. Feeling left out, Apache nudged Kazuya's leg with her horn. You haven't told us about your time in the living world. What were you up to? He observed the obviously jealous deer walking by his side and placed a hand on her head. Should I summarize it? Sure. Well, I was adopted by a beautiful sister who wants to slay hollows but is restricted from killing them by Shinigami. I found a friend in a maid who loves every piece of romance literature. His words painted a vibrant picture, each detail more intriguing than the last. Then, I awakened new powers which let me kill Barragan for good. To top it all off, I made allies with a genius Shinigami outcast and his childhood friend who, interestingly enough, loves shapeshifting into a cat form. That's an apt summary. Otudo-kun hasn't been back for 8 hours. The prolonged absence of a certain someone had a huge impact on the matriarch of the Ishida clan. Izumi was on the verge of a mental breakdown when Lisa couldn't find Kazuya. The maid had scoured the entire Karakura town in search of his Ryatsu but to no avail. He had vanished out of thin air, leaving Izumi in a broken state. To her, Kazuya wasn't just a shining beacon of hope for their Quincy race, he was also someone whom she treated like a real brother. Collapsing onto a chair, Izumi buried her face in her hands. My sweet, sweet Otudo, it's all my fault. I should have been more Vijay. Stop! Lisa interjected, unable to handle Izumi's exaggerated reaction. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, Izumi-sama. He isn't a child. He's capable of taking care of himself. No, you aren't understanding the gravity of this. He could have been kidnapped by the Soul Reapers because of his potential. Lisa couldn't find a reply to Izumi's hypothesis. Shinigami weren't very trusting of the leftover Quincy from the massacre. Heck, even she was here to monitor Izumi and her friend who was mostly missing from home. A part of Suriidii thought of Quincy as a nuisance and the other part was indifferent towards them. Izumi-sama, Lisa tried to reason. We didn't sense any combat. He might have just wandered to another town. Soul Reapers have many spells. Don't you know that? They certainly do. Lisa had to admit that Izumi had a point. As a Shinigami herself, Lisa couldn't even list all the countless Bakuto and Hado spells classified under Kido spells. As for casting them, she could only manage less than a handful of sealing and destruction spells. Regret gnawed at Lisa for not keeping a closer eye on Kazuya. What could have been the worst outcome? Getting found out? It seemed far more tolerable than witnessing a strong woman like Izumi break down into tears. Seeing Lisa's silence, Izumi wiped away her tears, putting on a brave face. I shouldn't lose hope so easily. Yeah. We'll drive through the nearby towns. Lisa, we'll find him at any cost. Lisa let out a heavy sigh. Izumi-sama, rest here. I'll contact my friends who can help me locate Kazuya. Izumi clasped her hand, a grateful smile illuminating her face. Thank you, Lisa. I don't know how to repay this gratitude. Don't worry about it, Izumi-sama. Lisa managed to plaster a polite smile on her face, all the while recalling Kasuke's cautionary words. Kasuke had been right all along. She should have severed her connections when she had the chance. Instead, she found herself more entangled in Quincy affairs than ever. Moreover, with Kazuya privy to her secret, she couldn't exit her job until all loose ends were tied. Why am I a completionist? She mentally berated her compulsive need for completion, a habit cultivated from persistently finishing books regardless of their quality. Minutes later, Lisa stepped out of the car. Beyond the open shutter lay a warehouse filled with junk. She lingered at the edge, a little uncertain about asking for help. Hey, Lisa! Shinji's voice echoed from the warehouse's cavernous interior. He emerged from the shadowy interior, a crease forming on his forehead as he spotted Lisa. Why are you still wearing that? Are you here to say goodbye and leave us for that? His words were abruptly silenced as a swift kick sent him sprawling onto the ground. Hiyori, the instigator of the sudden attack, darted out of the warehouse, her gaze falling on Lisa. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be on cleaning duty in that mansion? A faint smile tugged at the corners of Lisa's lips at the sight of Shinji and Hiyori's display of sibling love. Where is Hachi? I need his help in tracking down someone. Hatchin Ashoda, former vice captain of Kido Corps, had numerous Kido. One of them could certainly take care of her problem. Hiyori stomped up to Lisa, her arms crossed as she frowned up at the maid. Weren't you instructed to act like a human maid? Why are they sending you out on search missions? I'm a human maid who can't manifest her racial gathering ability, Lisa corrected Hiyori, her tone matter of fact. This isn't the time for an interrogation. This is urgent. All right. Hiyori looked over her shoulder, calling out to the man still within the warehouse. Hachi! Hey, Hachi! Get out here! Moments later, a rotund man with short pink hair came out. He exuded a gentlemanly aura, emphasized by his olive green tuxedo and neatly trimmed mustache. Lisa, you're back. Hachi, help me out. Just a small task. Hatchin interlocked his fingers as he raised a brow, a little skeptical about Lisa's request. I have nothing on hand. I suppose I can help you out. Don't give me too hard of a task. Let's go then. Lisa drove while explaining the task at hand. Hatchin placed a hand on his chin. I can cast Bakuto number 56 Motomaru, Seek the Shadows. There is a drawback. The trailing mechanism of this spell isn't very quick. I knew I could count on you, Hachi. Upon their arrival outside the Ishida mansion, Hatchin immediately picked up on the remnants of Kazuya's Ryatsu. He began forming symbols in the air, his golden Ryatsu conjuring words. Chase them, you black spirit of the night. Gaze upon this with curiosity and then seek the traitor out with your howls. As Hatchin's words echoed in the air, Lisa saw black trails come to life. That was easier than I thought. Hatchin closed his eyes, giving her a soft smile. Most things in life are easy, but we needlessly complicate them. Lisa chuckled at his wise quote. Yeah. Let's chase this guy. She broke into a dash, following the trails. She was following familiar streets, the route giving her a feeling of déjà vu. After weaving through narrow alleyways and bustling main roads for several minutes, the reason behind her sense of déjà vu fell into place. She skidded to a halt in front of a building she knew all too well, Kazuya Urahara's shop. Chapter 62, A Useless Gigai. As the Garganta gateway whispered shut behind him, Kazuya was met with an expanse that sprawled out in stark contrast to the world he'd left behind. Not a lush field of verdant green, but rather a bare landscape that stretched out before him. This place, as barren as it was, felt like a slice of paradise when contrasted with the dark nightscape of Hueco Mundo. The sole reason for that was the pseudo sunlight cast over everything, a byproduct of a Kido spell. Yoruichi had directly brought them to the huge underground chamber under the Urahara shop. Mila Rose's eyes swept over the vista. Whoa! It's so bright! Her excitement was reminiscent of a small-town individual stepping foot into a gleaming metropolis for the first time. Skull, we're finally seeing the light! The rest of the group seemed equally awestruck, though they chose to express it in the silent marveling of their surroundings, unlike Apache, who wanted to maintain a cool image. It's rather nice, Suruchi said, feeling the sunlight caress her skin. She tilted her head towards Yoruichi. Mr. Cat, is this your home? Yoruichi couldn't help but chuckle at the misconception around her gender and form. It seemed like they had ignored Kazuya's direct elaboration on her shape-shifting ability and took her cat form as her real form. Nope. Just a training place for Kazuya. Speaking of that guy. Kazuya, get your ass down here. Coming. The response came from a door hundreds of meters above them, and moments later Kazuya appeared, casually jumping down to join them. He curiously observed them, Harribel in particular. This lowly merchant Kazuya Urahara is humbled by your appearance. Stop with the useless flattery. Yoruichi almost rolled her eyes. These are Kazuya's friends. More human-looking than we expected, right? Certainly, Yoruichi-san. Kazuya turned to Kazuya, his lips slowly curling into a smile. Kazuya-san, to think you befriended a Vasto Lord and high-level Arrancars, are you attempting to build an army of powerful hollows for revenge? He was talking about Kazuya's past with Aizen, which Harribel and others weren't aware of. The word revenge reverberated around the underground space. This stirred Apache and Harribel, their gazes fixating on Kazuya with a newfound curiosity and suspicion. Is it about Barragan? Harribel connected the dots to the wrong individual. If so, he's already been dealt with. Bara. Kazuya cut Kazuya with a friendly smile. Yup, Barragan. He was such a pain in the ass. He gave the shopkeeper a sidelong glance and a wink. Right, Urahara-san? He'd rather keep the stuff about his Shinigami past away from them. The unstable and passionate Apache might just swear revenge on Aizen for him. It would needlessly complicate their relationship. Kazuya covered his face with his paper fan, hiding a devious smirk. Of course, Kazuya-san. It's not like you have enmity with anyone outside of Hueco Mundo. His face twitched at Kazuya's obvious attempt to troll him. Being in this situation, he couldn't speak much less the rest came to know about his made-up past with Aizen. His silence, however, led the others to speculate, their imaginations filling the blanks with wild possibilities. A small, knowing smile curled the edges of Sung Sun's lips, her sleeve raised to her mouth as if to cover up her smile. Interesting. Kazuya shook his head, swearing to get back at Kazuya at a later date. Urahara-san, have you started working on the Gigai I ordered? He promptly shifted the conversation to Gigai, which was necessary for everyone to move freely. After all, Kazuya only had this space to keep them. He was more of a bedroom guy than a cave guy. I gotta buy my own place in this town. Fortunately, his voice saved him the effort of working laborious jobs. Why work when he could scam, guide wealthy women with his voice. There are some problems, Kasuke whispered as he looked up. Tessai-san, get me the Gigai. Kazuya watched in anticipation as a white, humanoid figure tumbled down from the high entrance. With a swift motion, Kasuke jumped into the air and caught the figure with his cane, gently lowering it to the ground. This is it, a generic hollow Gigai. But it's not going to be of much use to anyone here. Kasuke voiced his doubt, thinking the Gigai wouldn't fit Apache. He had crafted it with the assumption that Kazuya's friends would be ordinary hollows, not Arrancars of Ajuchas and above class. Apache stared at the humanoid body. What is a Gigai? The question was echoed by Mila Rose and Sung-sun, their understanding of Shinigami tools being quite limited. Yoruichi poked the Jigai's leg with her paw. Gigai is what Shinigami use to interact with humans. Sometimes it's necessary to obtain knowledge. The ones Kasuke makes completely conceals Ryatsu. Even the sharpest Shinigami won't be able to track you. Even Mila Rose, typically the least sharp, grasped the purpose of the Gigai from Yoruichi's simplified explanation. Skull wanted these for us? There was a note of appreciation in her voice as she realized that Kazuya wasn't just looking for a way to hide them, he was searching for a means to help them integrate with humans and experience a life that only he could access as a hollow with his mysterious ability. The sentiment was mirrored in Surachi's softened gaze. Apache pressed her head affectionately against his arm. Sung-sun was wrong. I knew you wouldn't betray us. Kazuya was taken aback at the mention of betrayal. He was about to question it when a familiar Ryatsu prickled his senses. Glancing up, he caught sight of the one person who should never see him surrounded by hollows in his hollow form. Damn it! His life as a Quincy had run its course, but he was unwilling to sever his bonds with Izumi and Lisa just yet. Yet, with Lisa's arrival, it seemed all but guaranteed. No, not like this. There should be a way. His ever-optimistic and manipulative mind began to weave a new plot. Yoruichi, who hadn't seen Lisa for years, tilted her head. Why is Lisa Yatamaru dressed as a maid? Why does she look so lost? She had only ever seen Lisa berating Shunsui Kairaku with borderline cold faces. Seeing Lisa shocked was a completely new sight. Kasuke took a step back from the group as though trying to fade into the background. This escalated to the moon. Yoruichi-san, get some popcorn. We're about to be subjected to peak cinema. Yoruichi sharpened her gaze. Is there a relationship between her and Kazuya? There is, Kasuke confirmed, fluttering his fan. I'll explain later. The mere prospect of the impending chaos put a mischievous grin on his face. Chapter 63, Back and Forth. Lisa's gaze was locked onto Kazuya, shock apparent in her wide eyes. Her expectations had painted a very different picture, one of Kazuya captured by Kasuke. Yet here he was, in the midst of a group of hollows, a dominant leader rather than a captive. The atmosphere around him, the very essence of his Ryatsu, had transformed, so much so that if she closed her eyes, she would perceive him as an entirely different entity. His aura was undeniably similar to those she had always considered her enemies. A hollow or Arrancar. A tremor of unease stirred within her, resonating from her inner hollow. Impossible. Meanwhile, Harribel's group identified Lisa. Her frilly dress allowed Harribel and others to connect her to the maid in Kazuya's story. It's your maid friend, Mila Rose said and looked at Kazuya, who was still in his hollow form. Wait, should she be seeing you like this? Kazuya merely shook his head, a subtle flicker of sorrow in his eyes. Apache had a sinking feeling that the Kazuya she knew and cared for was slipping further away from her. Send her away. This friendship is over. Kazuya had told her that the maid belonged to a Quincy faction, the avid haters of the hollow race. Now that the maid had seen Kazuya in his hollow form, they would never see eye to eye, becoming enemies. Sung-sun tugged gently at Apache's tail. Let him deal with this. A soft grumble escaped Apache. I was just giving advice. He doesn't need to follow my words. Apache, the world isn't as black and white as it's in Hueco Mundo. Kazuya's hand softly patted her head. He then turned to Harribel. Can you take them away for a few minutes? I need to address some issues. Harribel's gaze rested on Lisa for a moment before she nodded. Come with me. With a gentle tap on Apache's back, she used Sonito to flash onto a distant hilltop. The rest followed her, albeit with evident reluctance. Kazuya looked away from Apache and gave a smile to Lisa. Are you waiting for me to carry you down here like a princess? Gracefully, she leaped down, her braided ponytail fluttering in the air as she landed. Her eyes flicked to the retreating hollows before settling back on Kazuya. Kazuya, what are you? I am a hollow. How? Lisa stared at him. You were a Quincy. How can? She cut herself off as she watched him transform into a more familiar form, one without the menacing black wings and hollow aura. I can switch between both. Her hand reached out, clutching his collar with a force born of confusion and anger. My intuition about you was correct. You betrayed Izumi. No, you were using her from the start. He held her wrist, his grip firm but gentle as he carefully pried her fingers from his collar. Lisa Yatamaru, the former vice-captain of 8th Squad, the curtains are lifted for both of us. Neither of us approached Izumi with kind intentions. We were using her for our own goals. The biting cold of his words pierced her like shards of glass, freezing her in place. His accusations echoed the accusations she kept hidden deep within her heart. How could she point an accusing finger at him when she herself was guilty of the same crime? A smile tugged at the corner of his lips as he saw his method working. Look on the bright side, though. She found two people who genuinely care about her, like a family. Isn't that wonderful? Despite Lisa's ulterior motives in staying with Izumi, there was no denying the fact she cared about Izumi. Otherwise, she wouldn't be mad at him for betraying Izumi. Wonderful my foot, Lisa scoffed. We're scum. Yes. We're villains. Yes. We don't deserve Izumi. Yeah, we don't. With a bitter scowl, Lisa jabbed a finger towards Kasuke, who was lingering in the distance. I blame this guy. He sent me on that spy mission. What's the relationship between you two? Kasuke casually fanned his face. It's purely transactional. You can call Kazuya-san one of my precious customers. Yoruchi shook her head. Kazuya isn't a bad person, Lisa. He had his reasons for approaching the Quincy clan. He used to be. Shihoin-san, please don't reveal other people's secrets without their consent. Besides, no point in bringing up my past. I'm a hollow now. A hollow and a Quincy. That chapter of my story is closed shut. Yoruchi sighed, acknowledging his request. Fine. Have it your way, stubborn little man. We're adults here. Some clashes here and there wouldn't break us apart. With a curt nod of agreement, Yoruchi blinked out of the scene, her form dissolving into the thin air. Kasuke looked left and right. I guess I should also exit the scene. And then they were alone, left to untangle the knot of their relationship on their own. Lisa turned her back against him. I don't know what to feel about this. Will we still be friends like before, or will you? Reaching for her hand, he yanked her and made her face him. Stop being a dramatic novel heroine. You saw through me, this is so embarrassing. You don't look embarrassed, though. He shrugged. Nothing's gonna change. I'll continue being Izumi Wani-chan's Otudo. You'll be her maid until you're bored of it. A slow nod was her response, her mind slowly wrapping itself around the situation. With Yoruchi's and Kasuke's stamps of approval, she could concede that Kazuya wasn't the villainous hollow she had feared. Why did you come to Karakura? I'm just here to chill with my friends. Your friends? Lisa's gaze went to the hollows in the distance. Those hollows? Yup. Pretty nice bunch. Pretty and nice they are, she said with a calm look. What was Shihoin-san trying to tell me? What did you used to be? Take a guess. Pervert. Stop projecting on others. He laughed at her speechless face. By the way, how did Winnie-chan take to my disappearance? She has been worrying non-stop about you. She'd have searched you on foot if I wasn't there. He let out a long sigh. Should I return? Absolutely. Don't reveal anything about me being a hollow. A nod was Lisa's agreement, her eyes turning soft as she looked up at him. There was an unexpected relief in sharing her guilt with someone. How long will we deceive her? Lies don't last forever, Kazuya. Sometimes a comforting lie is better than a harsh truth. A harsh truth may be painful, but it is the only way to true freedom and growth. He rolled his eyes at her. This isn't a competition for countering each other with quotes. Chapter 64, The Unkind. Kazuya, did Kasuke snitch on me? Back in Urahara's shop, Lisa threw another question at Kazuya, her gaze emanating cold anger. She suspected Kasuke of revealing her background to Kazuya for obvious reasons. Kazuya maintained a neutral expression, knowing well that a simple nod of his head could land Kasuke in a whirlwind of trouble. He was tempted to say yes, but given Kasuke's cunning, he would evade Lisa unscathed. He shook her head. I knew who you were the moment I heard your name. How? Is it also related to your mysterious past? Kind of. He wasn't lying, but he wasn't telling the truth either. Honestly, he hadn't expected his bullshit lies to ever reach this point. He had hoped the truth would remain between the Urahara gang and him, but Yoruichi and Kasuke almost revealed it to Apache and others. Lisa stared at him, feeling tempted to solve the mystery. I'll get it out of you one day. Keep dreaming. As they traversed through the shop, the muffled sounds of a conversation emanated from a room nearby. Lisa, without a second thought, opened the door. Tensai, the former commander of the Kido Corps, and his vice chief, Hatchin, were having a casual chat over tea. Hatchin's gaze drifted to Kazuya, his lips curling up into a knowing smile. So, you found him. I'd appreciate a detailed update later, if that's possible. Lisa knew Hatchin was misunderstanding her relationship with Kazuya, but she was too lazy to correct him. No problem, Hachi. I'll see you later. Bye, Lisa. With a nod towards Hatchin, Kazuya followed Lisa out of the shop, leading the two Kido masters to their discussion. In the meantime, Apache kept her gaze locked on the door through which Kazuya and Lisa had vanished. That jerk. Shouldn't he say something before leaving? Sun couldn't help but giggle. It was clear that Apache was simmering with jealousy at the sight of Kazuya leaving with Lisa, a woman of considerable beauty. Harribel, on the other hand, looked at Apache with a look of disapproval. I'm glad they didn't become enemies. Do you want Kazuya to be sad or happy? Apache huffed her head away, acting like she didn't care in either state, even though her consideration for Kazuya was only second to Harribel. No one beat Harribel when it came to caring for Kazuya. Now they will become something else, whispered Sun, grinning mischievously. Mila rose. Kazuya promised to buy us clothes. Let's drag him to the shop after we're given a suitable Gigai. Mila Rose clutched her shirt, which still had the lingering scent of Kazuya. She had made a little bond with the clothing since it was her first ever shirt. Right. I'll bury it somewhere safe. Mila Rose, you need to learn a lot about your new form, Suruchi said with a wry smile. Clothes are stored, not buried. Mila Rose knitted her brows. I like burying things. Keeps them safe. Despite having been an Arrancar for a while now, her primitive, wild instincts were still very much intact. Kasuke popped into view at a distance, and then, in a blink, he was standing in front of them thanks to his shuimpa. Ladies, sorry to interrupt your good time. I brought a couple Gigai. Harribel frowned at the two humanoid bodies that Kasuke was holding. They appeared more masculine than feminine and were devoid of any reproductive organs. Mila Rose snatched one from Kasuke. So how do I? Think about becoming one with it. The rest is easy. Mila Rose watched in fascination as her hand disappeared within the Gigai. Slowly her entire body melded with the artificial form, causing her shirt to drop to the floor. The Gigai radiated a brief shine as it shrank and adjusted to Mila Rose's shape. Wow, Mila Rose breathed out, taking in the sight of her naked form. This is some incredible stuff. Suruchi's jaw practically hit the floor. I can't sense her Ryatsu at all. She appears as a normal human. Kasuke cracked a grin. No need for thanks. This view is payment enough for my efforts. The self-proclaimed perverted merchant shamelessly feasted his eyes on the feral and alluring Mila Rose. His blatant ogling didn't go unnoticed. As soon as her initial astonishment subsided, Mila Rose grew aware of Kasuke's attention. She pointed at him, baring her sharp fangs. Don't you dare look at me, pervert. With her warning delivered, she bent to retrieve her shirt and slipped it on in a hurry. She held no objections against Kazuya seeing, even admiring, her naked body. Kasuke, however, made her repulsed. Kasuke fanned himself, feeling the temperature rising under her intense glare. My, no need to be so angry. I can refer you to a psychologist who can help you with anger issues. Mila Rose clicked her tongue before spinning on her heel and bounding towards a distant hill. The training chamber was large enough to allow her to put ample space between herself and Kasuke. Harribel watched without expressing approval or disapproval of Mila Rose's actions. The fact that Mila Rose hadn't lost control and attacked Kasuke was commendable growth in itself. The lioness' prejudice towards men was something else. His influence helped. Harribel moved forward and accepted the remaining Gigai from Kasuke. Instead of trying it herself, she passed it to Sung-sun. Sung-sun's eyes crinkled in happiness. Thanks, Harribel-sama. Kasuke scratched his chin thoughtfully. Harribel had made the right decision in passing the Gigai since it was only suitable for Arrancars. Excuse me. I have several questions. What? He pointed at Sung-sun and then swung his finger towards Suruchi. I'm a little confused. Are you an Arrancar or not? Sung-sun arched an eyebrow. Do you know about Resurrection? Kasuke frowned before shaking his head. It was his first time hearing the term. His knowledge on hollows was half-baked compared to his knowledge on Shinigami. Teach me! Just like Shinigami have various release levels for their Zanpakuto, we, Arrancars, have our own form of release. We call it Resurrection. Interesting. Kasuke's voice was filled with intrigue. Doesn't that mean Kazuya-san can grow even stronger? He hadn't seen Kazuya in his Resurrection state, leading him to reassess Kazuya's strength. Technically, yes, said Suruchi. However, he has yet to awaken his Zanpakuto. Awaken? You should ask your friend Yoruchi. He knows about Kazuya's unique condition. Kasuke chuckled, hearing Yoruchi being referred to as a man. That brings me to my second question. Are you in a constant release state like the Lamia lady? He would have classified her in the same category as Harribel if it weren't for the trace amounts of Shinigami Ryatsu emanating from her. Suruchi patiently explained her condition. She wouldn't have bothered with Kasuke if he wasn't Kazuya's ally. Do you understand now? Arrancar's Zanpakuto are just like Shinigami's, except they don't have spirits. Kasuke cupped his chin, contemplating the comparison between the Arrancar and the Visored. Both of them possessed powers of Hollow and Shinigami. However, Visored's Hollow attributes were significantly weaker than natural Hollows, and likewise, the Arrancar's Shinigami attributes were weaker. It's no surprise the Gigai I made for the Visored is working perfectly with them. Once again he observed Suruchi. His Bankai could theoretically reconstruct her severed wings and arms, but the effects would be nullified once he deactivated the Bankai. Even if the effect was temporary, he couldn't recklessly reveal his trump card. She can manage like this. He looked at Harribel. I'll inform Kazuya when I'm done with your Gigai. Apache stepped out from behind Sung-sun. Mister, don't make mine yet. She had decided to return to Hueco Mundo after spending some time with Kazuya. The Gigai Kasuke will make for her now will become obsolete for her humanoid form. Less work for me. The lazy shopkeeper couldn't be happier with the arrangement. Chapter 65, Izumi's Grand Scheme. A tide of relief flooded Izumi as she laid eyes on Kazuya returning with Lisa. She rushed toward him, her face wearing a bright smile. Otuto-kun. Wani-chan. She buried her face in his chest. Tell us before you disappear next time. Lisa blankly stared at the brother and sister hugging each other happily. Rather than siblings, Izumi came off as his little sister. Izumi-sama, you wouldn't believe where I found him. Kazuya's eyes met Lisa's sadistic gaze, which indicated a mischievous plan on the horizon. She was most likely taking revenge for making her run all over the town or perhaps backing out of the date. Instead of interrupting her, he nudged her to continue feeding lies to Izumi. Where was he? Izumi asked, stepping away from his warm embrace. I was so worried. He was in a love hotel with a married woman. Thankfully, I reached there before he could get physical with her. Izumi sucked in a sharp breath. Otuto-kun, is that true? Kazuya let out a sigh. Of all the possible lies in the world, she chose the cliché cheating trope from the romance novels. That poor woman was in need of desperate love. You know how influential my voice is, Wani-chan. She might have done something horrible if I wasn't there. He added more depth to Lisa's one-dimensional story, more than willing to play along with her little games. Izumi's features softened, and a gentle smile played on her lips. You saved her from a horrible fate. But, Izumi-sama, don't overlook his sin, Lisa interjected, a hint of urgency in her voice. Ask him why he was in bed with her? She wanted to reward me, he said, shaking his head. I haven't had sex for 2 months. You ruined everything, Lisa. Izumi swiveled to face Lisa. I know I sent you to find Kazuya, but you could have waited until he had settled his private business. Guilt slithered over Lisa until she remembered she had fabricated this entire situation. Her glare bore into Kazuya, as if she wanted to kill him on the spot. Cunning bastard. Izumi clasped Kazuya's shoulders, a stern frown creasing her forehead. Otuto-kun, you aren't allowed to impregnate any random women. Your partner should be a Quincy so we can bring more potential pureblood Quincy, into the world. Lisa, consider Otuto-kun as a potential partner. His exceptional genes would undeniably yield offspring with immense potential. She was already setting the gears in motion for an Quincy repopulation program. She needed Quincy women since it severely reduced the chances of the offspring being a normal human. Kazuya wasn't sure how to react to her grand plan. As much as he loved women, he didn't need to degrade himself to the level of a sperm donor for some sex. The idea of adding more powerhouses to Yhwach's army didn't sit well with him either. So, Izumi's grand plan, while well-intentioned, was simply not in alignment with his principles. Never! Lisa rejected instantaneously. I refused to enter a relationship out of any obligation. She had read too many romance novels to have a forced relationship. As a Shinigami, she was a firm advocate of personal freedom and the liberty to choose one's own path, which also included finding her own partner whom she loved and adored. Izumi gave an apologetic smile. Forgive me if I came off as forceful. With a gentle touch, Kazuya held Izumi's hand. Wani-chan, don't throw this responsibility on me. I'm but a humble warrior. Izumi's nod was hesitant, her eyes shadowed with a flicker of disappointment. I understand. Though she seemed compliant on the surface, he could sense her steadfast commitment to her Quincy race. This stupid sister of mine is a stuck-up. An hour later, Kazuya found himself descending back into the underground training grounds. Shaking off Izumi, who was bent on taking him out for a meal, proved to be a task of its own. Upon arrival, he was surprised to find Harribel honing her water manipulation skills. Elsewhere, Mila Rose was engaged in a fierce sparring match with Surachi. Only Apache and Sung-sun seemed to be at leisure. The Snake Lady was no longer in her Lamia form, but instead was sitting by Apache's side in a white towel. Kazuya. At his entrance, Apache sprung up from her position and unwittingly nuzzled her head against his palm, as if seeking affectionate pats. "Did you unfriend that Shinigami witch?" He cast a quizzical glance at her adorable gesture. "How do you know Lisa is a Shinigami?" "My guess was right, Fufu," Sun chimed in. Yoruichi and Kasuke were familiar with Lisa. Her being Shinigami made more sense than a Quincy. He gave her a round of applause. Others may have grown in raw power, but Sun's observation skills grew at a frightening pace. "Actually, she isn't a Shinigami. I'll tell you about her some other time." Apache bit his hand. "Can we stop talking about her? Let's talk about you then, my sweetheart." What? You've grown pretty strong. How much did my gluttonous little dear eat?" In terms of sheer power, Apache now stood shoulder to shoulder with the base form of Mila Rose. Undergoing Arrancarization would make her an unstoppable force among hollows. "I'm not little," she retorted. "I'm strong, but not strong enough to be a Vasto Lord." Kazuya could see her spirits going down as she was still a little depressed after eating Avanya. "Why don't you start with Arrancarification first? I have a method that has 0 risks." She would calm down after receiving some love from him. Her attraction towards him was plainly obvious. He had to make her an Arrancar before Sun pushed him down, or else the deer would be heartbroken. He wanted to sleep with her first since she was so head over heel for him. "A safe method?" Harribel asked, halting her training as his words caught her attention. "How so?" He turned to the door. "Urahara-san. Shihoin-san. Come down here." It was about time he made Kasuke part with his precious Hogyoku. Chapter 66, First of Many. Kasuke and Yoruichi answered Kazuya's call instantaneously. Yoruichi stretched languidly, yawning. Her voice was sleepy but teasing, "Give me a good reason for disturbing my evening nap." Kazuya smiled. "It doesn't really concern Shihoin-san but Urahara-san." "My friend, can I borrow the Hogyoku?" Kasuke, usually so quick with a response, was rendered speechless. Kazuya's request for the Hogyoku, the most unknown element in the world, was as casual as a friend asking for a book. "What do you need it for?" The Hogyoku had only shown one use so far, aiding the survival of the visored. Even then, it hadn't fulfilled Kasuke's original goal to fully rid Shinji and his companions of their hollow masks. "I'll use it to make Apache and Harribel Arrancars." "Huh?" Yoruichi raised her voice in surprise. "Kasuke, Hogyoku can do that?" Kasuke shook his head slowly, a gesture not of denial but of uncertainty. "Arrancar and visored are 2 sides of the same coin. Theoretically, it's a possibility." Kazuya revealed a soft smile. "Urahara-san, I know things about Hogyoku that you probably don't. Give me a chance." "I can't give you the Hogyoku even if I wanted to. It has been put in a deactivated state." A spark of surprise flickered across Kazuya's face. Reactivating the Hogyoku required an immense amount of spiritual energy, twice that of a captain's. In canon, Aizen was one of those beings. While Kazuya's Ryatsu was above captain's, he was far from reaching the requisite level. "I should be 1.5 of captain at max." Uncertain, he gave a resigned sigh. "I know of a method to activate it." Even Kasuke didn't know the method of awakening the Hogyoku from its current dormant state. "You know too much, young Padawan." The idea of handing over the Hogyoku to a Vasto Lord Arrancar, let alone someone with past connections to Aizen, unsettled Kasuke. It felt like giving a loaded gun to a mischievous youngster. "Let me try," Kazuya insisted. "I won't disappoint you, Urahara-san." Kasuke weighed in his options before finally giving a nod. Kazuya's support was invaluable in his war against Aizen. Besides, he was curious about Hogyoku's mysterious abilities. "I'll be keeping an eye on you throughout." "Sure." Minutes later, Kasuke returned with the Hogyoku, an orb glowing with hues of purple and blue sealed in a glass-like, transparent dodecahedron. Despite its dormant state, Kazuya felt a connection to it, as if he could hear a heartbeat echoing from within its sealed depths. He wasn't the only one drawn in by this strange phenomenon. The egg, resting in Sung-sun's company, twitched to life, emanating waves of powerful Ryatsu that seemed to echo the rhythm of the heartbeat Kazuya sensed. I definitely have a connection to the Soul King. Kisuke's eyes, sharp as ever, caught the subtle nuances of Kazuya's reaction. This strange display solidified his suspicions about Kazuya's uncanny abilities. What's the activation method? Kazuya shrugged nonchalantly. We need someone who has twice the Ryatsu of a captain. A moment of stunned silence followed his statement. Yoruchi's golden eyes held a question, asking if he was joking. When he merely returned a serious gaze, she let out a sigh. Where will we find that someone? Captains were already the strongest beings the Seriidii had to offer. Only the prestigious royal guard might possibly satisfy such an outrageous requirement. Haha, Aizen fits the requirement. That guy is a monster. Kisuke unsealed the Hogyoku before tossing the orb at Kazuya and calmly fanning his face. Let's see you try. Catching the Hogyoku deftly, Kazuya allowed his Ryuryoku to infuse the orb. Its luminescent hues dimmed, replaced by an almost void-like black. However, it wasn't enough. Just as he was about to cease his attempt, a sudden surge of Ryatsu flowed from his Zanpakuto. The egg, as though answering some unseen beckoning, floated towards him and began sharing its Ryatsu, as if co-conspiring to activate the Hogyoku. The egg's Ryatsu easily reached the level of an Ajucha's, a hollow only second to Vasto Lord and Captains in terms of Ryatsu. Kisuke turned to Yoruchi. Yoruchi-san, what do you think? The black cat gracefully hopped on his hat. I'm genuinely happy he is on our side. Me too. Suddenly, the Hogyoku radiated a chilling aura, shaking everyone present to their core. It was akin to an ancient beast waking from a long slumber. Kisuke never imagined he would encounter this aura again after having sealed the Hogyoku away. It was unlike Ryatsu or anything comparable, existing in an entirely different dimension. Now you know why I sealed this thing. Yoruchi nodded. We can't let Aizen get this. Never. Meanwhile, an involuntary smile crept onto Kazuya's face. This success in reviving the Hogyoku was solely due to the egg's assistance. Affectionately, he patted the egg before tucking it securely under his arm. Let's fucking go, Egg-chan. Egg-chan, the MVP, Kisuke whispered. Kazuya-san, finish it quickly. I'll seal it back after you're done. Of course, he confirmed with a nod, hovering the reawakened Hogyoku over Apache's head. Are you ready? She stepped away from him. Will it stop me from becoming Vasto Lord? The Vasto Lorde-Class was her obsession. She wouldn't hesitate in giving up her Arrancar form if it meant becoming a Vasto Lord. I don't think so. Her eyes hardened with determination. Then. I'm ready. Kazuya filled the Hogyoku with his Ryatsu and his aspirations. As his energy saturated the orb, its gray hue darkened until it reached the absolute black of a moonless night. Suddenly, it expelled a blinding radiance. This dazzling light enveloped Apache, and then it splintered, scattering around like countless shards of shattered glass. Kazuya! A figure dashed through the swirling shards. It was Apache, her form fully nude. Throwing her arms around him, she pressed against him, her form softer and more voluptuous than he remembered. In his memory, she leaned towards a slender silhouette, yet now, she seemed to mirror Mila Rose's curvaceous form in both her figure and height. She is like 5 feet 5 inches. Almost 4 inches above her canon height. She perhaps changed her desired body after seeing him gush over Mila Rose, resulting in her attaining a more curvaceous form. This jealous little... Blushing, Apache gazed up at him, her heterochromatic eyes looking deeply at him. Her eyebrows furrowed in a futile attempt to disguise her embarrassment. I'm an Arrancar now. He gave a gentle nod. I can see that. Next step is to become a Vasto Lord, then I'll work towards my promise of becoming the strongest Arrancar. She still remembered her vow from the days they wandered the Hueco Mundo by themselves. A vow he made her do for fun, but she took it seriously. Still, he felt there was more to her hunger than their promise. She wants to protect me, doesn't she? How cute! He placed his hands around her hips, and her blush deepened. You'll have to surpass me if you want to be the strongest Arrancar. Why are you counting yourself? I'm talking about Hollows and Arrancars. You're an abomination of Hollow and Quincy. Hey, that one hurt. I was joking. She lowered her gaze and nuzzled her face against his chest. I just have to surpass Harribel, who is the second strongest Hollow right now. Good luck, he replied and encouragingly patted her back. You can do it. Apache clenched her teeth, well aware that Harribel's power would receive a massive boost after her own transformation into an Arrancar. Everyone in Hueco Mundo once believed that the formidable Baragon they worshipped was invincible. You proved them wrong. I'll do the same. Her determination ignited a surge in her Ryatsu, startling everyone around. Chapter 67, The Shark Queen. Mila Rose felt Apache's Ryatsu spike in the midst of her mock battle with Suruchi. She halted abruptly, signaling Suruchi to cease as well. Absurd. Suruchi cast an envious glance at Apache. She has surpassed both of us. You mentioned Baragon having a cult, right? Yeah. They'll try to avenge their leader when they find out Baragon is dead. A wicked grin split Mila Rose's face, revealing her sharp, predatory fangs. Not if I devour them first. We're storming the doors of Las Noches when we return to Hueco Mundo. The ferocious lioness set her eye on the poor hollows under Baragon, intending to use them as fuel for her growth. Harribel wouldn't be able to say anything if those hollows attacked Mila Rose first during her tour to Las Noches. My plan is impeccable. Suruchi's eyes widened at the audacious plan. Entering Las Noches also meant a potential encounter with Sale. She was unsure if her heart was prepared for his smug grin. I think I'll sit this one out. Stop being a pussy. I'll protect you. Okay. The goth Arrancar changed her mind at Mila Rose's insistence. Kazuya wouldn't let me die, right? Harribel approached Apache and patted her back with her sword arm. I don't plan on stagnating. Kazuya, do me. Oh my. You should ask us to leave before giving him an order like that, Kisuke said as he winked at Kazuya. You struck gold, Kazuya-san. The chance of a man having multiple partners, a harem, was highest in the Hollow race since their race mostly followed the law of the jungle. He had hardly seen a man having a harem outside of the noble families of the Siriidii. Kazuya smiled. Isn't it natural to fully enjoy my life after my death? I wasn't the only one who saw this as a harem gathering, Yoruchi added, her golden eyes glinting with mischief. This kid went from a side mob to a main character. This is shitty writing I expect from teenagers, not the gods sitting in high heavens. Gods are real, Shihoin-san, he said. Even the one ruling over the Soul Society is a husk. Kisuke narrowed his eyes. You know about that too. Yup. Yoruchi pawed Kisuke's face. What did he mean? I can't tell you now. Stop hiding things from your childhood friend. Kazuya fiddled with the Hogyoku and looked at the tomboy who kept clinging to him. Apache, how about we cuddle during the night? You heartless goose, I'm naked. Do you want everyone to see my private parts? She told a convincing lie to cover up her ulterior motive of feeling his warmth, a skill she completely learned from him. Leaning closer to her, Kazuya whispered in her ear, "This body is mine. I won't let anyone else defile it with their lustful gazes." Excuse me, I feel like you're calling me out. Kisuke jested. Yoruchi-san, I feel like we should leave. I kinda have that feeling too. The black cat and the merchant felt awkward, but they couldn't leave before retrieving the Hogyoku. Kazuya held Apache close and started Harribel's transformation process. As the blinding light enveloped her, the surrounding moisture coalesced and rushed towards her, forming a massive, heart-shaped cocoon that lifted her into the air. Kisuke's eyes widened in alarm. Oh no, she will flood my poor shop. With Yoruichi sitting on his hat, he rushed up the ladder, stopping halfway along its height. He found the current the safest location to protect him from a flood. Yoruichi, meanwhile, watched Harribel's transformation with intense interest. This woman embodies the phrase "still waters run deep." The heart shape must represent her emotions. She tried to decipher the symbolism behind Harribel's transformation with the information at her hand. Speculation was all she could do. Kisuke shrugged. It could be anything. Meanwhile, Kazuya floated a safe distance away from Harribel's water cocoon, holding Apache securely in his arms. Harribel sure knows how to leave a lasting impression. She wouldn't be your mommy if she didn't do your way, the flashy way. How do you know about our secret relationship? It's not a secret anymore. Harribel confessed she treats you like her son. Huh? When did that happen? Some time ago. Oh, she is here. Suddenly, the tip of a white blade pierced through the cocoon, slicing it in half. As the water splashed down in a massive wave, Harribel emerged, levitating in midair. Her expression was as serene and cold as the deepest ocean depths. Gripping her Zanpakuto, she held it up, examining it with a focused gaze. This power, it should be enough to make my dream a reality. Kazuya observed Harribel's transformation with a smile. Her resurrection form had revealed her gorgeous face, adding 2 lightning bolt tattoos on either side of her face. Her golden hair was just as wild as it was in her Vasto Lord form. Her hollow mask had evolved into a fascinating form, with a bone collar encircling her neck and extending to cover her chest. Additional bone structures appeared on her shoulders, resembling shark fins. A spine-like formation ran down her stomach, and she now wore a bone miniskirt and knee-high white boots. Her Zanpakuto had morphed into a large gauntlet that resembled a giant shark's tooth, marked with 3 gill-like lines. Unlike Apache, he couldn't spot any differences in Harribel from her canon version. Strange. I thought her personality shift was just as big as Apache. As she turned to him, her features softened, her lips curling into a soft smile. Kazuya, I wish we had the Hogyoku for your transformation. You would have avoided so much agony. Rather than reveling in her new power, Harribel was lamenting the agony Kazuya had endured during his own transformation, which had been a much more grueling process without the Hogyoku. Kazuya shrugged off her concern with a grin. No point worrying about it now. By the way, you're looking pretty deadly right now. She looked at herself, as though observing her physical changes. She had shed her bone armor, which had become redundant after gaining Yarrow, the defensive skill of Arrancars. The sensation of the air against her bare skin was actually quite refreshing. A hint of excitement flickered in her eyes. I want to test my new abilities. Will you spar with me? Kazuya knew a small spar between could lead to hour-long battles, especially since they both were considerably stronger compared to their last spar. Let's do that after I get you all some clothes. He wanted them to take the time to appreciate and adjust to their new forms, particularly Apache, who experienced a rough time lately. Harribel narrowed her eyes. I don't need clothes. I have, she trailed off, placing a hand on her chest and closing her eyes in concentration. A thin layer of water emerged from the gills on her Zanpakuto and enveloped her in a smaller version of her heart cocoon. When the water subsided, it revealed a significant change in Harribel's appearance. Her blonde hair was now elegantly tied in a relaxed ponytail, and she wore a crown featuring 4 horns. A translucent veil covered her mouth, unlike her vicious mask in the original canon. For attire, she was dressed in a pristine white coat trimmed with black fur, draped over a revealing, high-collared white top. A grand cape of white with a royal purple interior cascaded from her shoulders, the base decorated with black fur. Her outfit was completed with loose white pants cinched with a water droplet-shaped golden belt accessory. Harribel's aura was commanding and demanded awe and respect, making her seem every bit the regal queen. Yet, there was a wild edge to her persona, a queen who wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. Her Zanpakuto hanging by her waist followed her regal appearance. While the blade retained its unique shape from the anime, it was no longer hollow in the center. The purple Zanpakuto with a massive hilt seemed like a broadsword when seen from afar. It'd make sense if she became more mother-like, but she turned into a queen. He understood her inclination to remove her iconic mask since it made her seem more hollow than a human. However, the rest of her aesthetic changes went over his head. Shark Mommy transcended to Shark Queen Mommy. Apache's pinch at his waist snapped him from his thoughts. Stop staring at her. It's natural to admire beauty. Pulling down her veil, Harribel offered a soft smile. I didn't expect these kinds of clothes. Neither did I, he whispered. It's like an exclusive perk for Vasto Lorde-Arrancars. Some Arrancars gained clothes in their resurrection form, but only Kazuya, Harribel, and perhaps Barragan gained new spiritual clothes in their base Arrancar form. Chapter 68, The Emergence. With a careful gentleness, Kazuya ran his fingers along Apache's bare back, kneading the tension away with a firm yet soothing touch. His other hand cradled the egg, pulsating rhythmically with vibrant waves of Ryatsu. The mystical egg seemed to brim with a sense of contentment, as if it enjoyed his touch, or perhaps it was merely using its Ryatsu to speak in a language only it understood. The egg's true thoughts were shrouded in mystery. Urahara-san, can I get a Gigai for Apache? Kasuke calmly nodded. Absolutely. Before I do, let's talk about an important matter. Come to my room. A veil of solemnity was drawn over Yoruichi's usually playful eyes, a sight rarely seen by many. Alone. Such gravity on their faces usually appeared in matters involving Aizen. Well, I gotta go. Apache peered up at him, her eyes slits of skepticism, mirroring the suspicion reflected in Harribel's gaze. What are you hiding from us? Apache harbored a sense of skepticism regarding Kazuya's collaboration with Kasuke. A gut feeling hinted at the existence of a larger scheme at play, which was intricately woven around their association. Driven by her instincts, she yearned to stand by his side and help him, but she couldn't do so without knowing his troubles. The secret to immortality, he whispered with a cheeky smile. Do you want in? She scoffed. Liar. Harribel gazed at him with the intensity of a huntress gauging her prey. You will tell us everything if you think of us as your family. Without communicating, she was on the same page with Apache, both looking to offer him assistance. He blinked in surprise, taken aback. There was no overt threat in Harribel's words. What she had thrown at him was a masterstroke of emotional manipulation. The thought of being subjected to such strategy by Harribel, of all people, was shocking, to say the least. Geez. I'll fill you in when I'm done with Urahara-san. Harribel showed a soft smile. Thanks. Kazuya could only shake his head in response before flying in the direction of Kasuke and Yoruichi. Moments later, all three could be seen sitting inside Kasuke Urahara's living room. His Zanpakuto lay dormant in his lap, still releasing small waves of Ryatsu. He didn't pay it any attention, instead staring at the Hogyoku. The Hogyoku, despite its uninspiring appearance, seemed as enticing to him as a steaming bowl of miso ramen. He felt a surge of an uncontainable urge to swallow the orb, yet his practiced discipline held his reckless impulses at bay. Don't get sucked into the swirl of temptations, Kasuke said. Give it to me, Kazuya-san. Kasuke's caution, while heartfelt, seemed unnecessary. Despite his thirst for power, consuming the Hogyoku might transform him into an even more unknown species. His body was already a riveting puzzle without the involvement of Hogyoku. He exhaled a weary sigh. What kind of connection do I have to this? One that's rather convoluted, Kasuke responded, his tone neutral. Nothing connected to that entity will ever find a comprehensive explanation. All we can find are theories. Despite serving as an anchor to three realms, the Soul King once used to be the strongest entity, possessing nigh omnipotence powers. Every fragment of the Soul King's body possessed immense powers. Even Hogyoku's creation was made possible by Soul King's fragments. Actual facts, Urahara-san. Can I keep Hogyoku for a little longer? Isn't your objective finished? Kasuke's eyes were serious, unlike his usual playfulness. The topic of Hogyoku had become of utmost importance after Kazuya told him about Aizen's objective. Kasuke wouldn't hesitate in becoming enemies with him if it meant keeping the Hogyoku away from evil hands. What more could you possibly do with Hogyoku? Unless, Yoruichi narrowed her eyes sharply. You know what Aizen intends to do with Hogyoku, and you want to achieve it first. Reluctantly, he extended his arm, placing the Hogyoku back onto the low table. Here! Good decision. A sudden interruption froze them all in their tracks. All eyes veered towards the egg. Crack, crack, crack. A jagged line of fractures began to cleave the eggshell apart. His Zanpakuto awakened at the least expected time. His breath hitched in his throat as a claw ruptured the shell, revealing an entity shrouded in a maroon aura. It emerged and hovered above them. This day was brimming with revelations, not least of which was his Zanpakuto's true appearance. It was neither a hollow nor an Arrancar. The being that emerged from the egg was a bird. Not just any bird, but a magnificent bird adorned with vibrant carmine and jet-black feathers. A subtle flutter of its wings kindled dark red flames that played across its enchanting form. Each black feather was adorned with the merest hints of crimson at their edges, like droplets of blood. I knew it. Somewhat close to his expectations, his Zanpakuto was a black phoenix, one that seemed oddly small and cute for its power level. The phoenix locked its obsidian eyes on Kazuya, delivering a piercing screech that echoed through the room. You're the absolute worst, partner. Its voice was decidedly feminine. An indignant expression crossed Kazuya's face. How dare a measly bird insult me? I'm not insulting you. I'm questioning your intelligence, you wannabe young master. Are you talking to the bird? Yoruichi questioned, her gaze shifting from Kazuya's playful face to the phoenix. This cute little phoenix. How can it be an Arrancar's Zanpakuto? The phoenix swiveled towards Yoruichi with a menacing glow in her black eyes. Do not interrupt my conversation with my partner. It seemed like she had decided to address Kazuya as her partner, which made sense since they were divided from one soul. Yoruichi cocked her head curiously. Is it trying to say something? Kazuya couldn't help but chuckle at the exchange. It appeared his Zanpakuto was tempestuous, a stark contrast to his own cool demeanor. However, it seemed she was only capable of communicating with him. He plucked her out of the air and held her gently. Urahara-san, Shihoin-san, can I have 10 minutes with my Zanpakuto? Urahara gave a nod of understanding as he picked up the Hogyoku under the watchful eyes of the phoenix. Sure. Sure. What I was about to say is less important than the well-being of your Zanpakuto. Yoruichi-san, let's give them space to connect to each other. As a fellow wielder of a Zanpakuto, Kasuke found no fault in Kazuya prioritizing his bond with his Zanpakuto. Zanpakuto spirits are a pain in the ass. Yoruichi declared with a sigh, casting a lingering glance at the little phoenix before trailing after Kasuke out of the room. Later. As the door slid shut behind them, the phoenix broke free of his grasp and launched herself at him. The tackle knocked him onto the floor. She perched atop his chest, her wings fluttering wildly, casting a radiant dark red fire around the room. Oddly enough, the fire danced harmlessly, burning nothing in the room. It should stop them from eavesdropping on us. Now, partner. Let's talk. Chapter 69, Vision del Diablo. Kazuya let out a sigh, running his hand through his silver locks. I'd honestly prefer it if you were a busty chick sitting on my chest, he said, the corner of his mouth pulling into a slight grin. Well, do you have a name, or should I provide one for you? My name, what was my name again, Nami? It's only a fraction of my name. Just call me Nami. Not the Nami from One Piece, mind you. She scrutinized Kazuya's expression, finding it calmly unsurprised. You already knew, didn't you? It's only logical that my Zanpakuto will get access to my memories. My partner is as calculating as I'd anticipated, Nami mused, her praise tinged with a hint of reluctant respect. This intelligence works against you sometimes. Take, for instance, your recent incident with the Hogyoku. Your instincts were screaming at you to consume it, yet you perceived this urge as a potential trap. You suspected that the Hogyoku was tricking you, or you were scared of becoming an actual monster. Kinda. I don't want to end up like Aizen. Harribel and others won't like it. He'd never cast away Harribel and the others for a surge of power, no matter how tantalizing the temptation. For a woman who'd sacrifice everything for his sake, it was a negligible price to pay. Halting your natural growth for your women? You aren't cold enough, partner. We missed a massive opportunity to evolve to our next stage. What's more, I burned my blood essence to awaken the Hogyoku. My sacrifice turned out to be meaningless. The Ryatsu that was the catalyst in Hogyoku's awakening, it was drawn from her life essence, the crimson drops that glistened on her feathers. Relax. It's not like I can't get the Hogyoku again. You absolutely can. So, why do I feel anger from you? Like you'll throw a punch at me if you had hands type of anger. He was able to sense her emotional state, likely an effect of their deep connection. Her internal state was chaotic, a storm of conflicting emotions. Forget it. She tilted her head towards the unseen ceiling, eyes closed as if she was having the inner monologue of a protagonist. It's raining outside. Even though you're a part of me and I can sense your emotions, I can't understand you. My Zanpakuto is such a mystery. Quit being such a tsundere. Gently, he picked her up by her sides and sat up, nestling her comfortably in his lap. Like soothing a child, he patted her head. There. Everything will be fine. She stared back at him, rendered speechless by his actions. Just out of curiosity, do I get a release form now? No, you don't. Not until I finish my evolution. As things stand, I'm about the level of an Ajuchas. We both need to be on the same level to trigger a resurrection. That's sad. Sad indeed, partner. I could have hatched as a Vasto Lord in a few weeks at max. Now, I have no idea how to evolve my form. Kazuya gradually understood the root of Nami's anger. Her premature awakening had disrupted her evolution. However, he harbored no regrets about his decision not to consume the Hogyoku. You are like that, partner. She let out a puff of fire as a sigh. I'll rest in your inner world and try to find a solution. Let's forget about eating Hogyoku until I evolve. Sure. With that, she vanished from sight. But Kazuya could still sense her presence nestled deep within his being. Her existence seemed to deviate from a typical Arrancar's Zanpakuto, which remained as a physical object on Arrancar's body. Instead, she was more akin to a Shinigami's Zanpakuto spirit, yet even they had a physical manifestation as a weapon. Mine is abnormal like always. Every aspect of his existence appeared to diverge from the norm. His Arrancar form, the disappearance of his hollow holes, his unique ability to manipulate Erasure, and now his Zanpakuto, all chose to tread a different path. Concern gnawed at him regarding what his future might hold for him. Would he end up being similar to the Soul King? Racial ability, Resurrection, partial mode, unlocked. Current mastery level, yet to learn. The system's notification presented a stark contrast to Nami's earlier assertion about their Resurrection form being unattainable at the moment. Was Nami, his Zanpakuto, more knowledgeable than his system? Who was speaking the truth? Intrigued, he decided to put Nami to the test to determine if she shared his manipulative tendencies. Nami, I feel like I can use your Resurrection. Huh? How? She asked, shock apparent in her voice. It's impossible. Closing his eyes, he sought to tap into the primal instincts that knew his body better than his conscious mind. Suddenly, a surge of dark red flame, akin to Nami's own, erupted from him before disappearing. He opened his status, finding no discernible change except for a black blindfold materializing over his eyes and a blood-red gem embedded in the center of his forehead. Interestingly, the blindfold seemed to be of a spiritual nature, as it brought no impairment to his vision. The blindfold twitched as Nami made her presence known. You did it. I remember our original ability now. What is it? Focus, partner. Let your eyes breathe the world around you. Don't talk like me. With a playful retort, he focused his gaze over his surroundings. The world seemed to plunge into darkness, with only the white outlines of his room giving it form. His gaze fell on the low table before him, and suddenly a torrent of knowledge gushed into his consciousness, its physical structure, components, density, mass, dimensions, volume, temperature, and a multitude of other properties. Overwhelmed by the flood of information, he reeled back, eyes clamped shut. This ability is gonna explode my brains. You can analyze an object to gain an abundance of information. It should take away the weakness of your aspect of death, oppression. His resurrection ability allowed him to adapt in fights on the fly. It also took away his biggest gripe with the oppression ability, which was digesting countless books. This is honestly creepy how well my wish came true. Is it an effect of Hogyoku? Don't glaze over minor matters, partner. Shouldn't we name this ability? Asked Nami in an upbeat voice. Something Spanish like other hollow abilities. How about Vision del Diablo, Vision of Devil? What does the devil have to do with it? Who cares? It sounds cool. That's what matters the most. It seemed like his Zanpakuto became fond of hobbies often associated with the edgy phase. One of those struck with the 8th grade syndrome. Vision del Diablo is only a fraction of our power. It's not even connected to our original ability. You'll be surprised when you wield a full 100%. Damn. What's our true ability? The power of life and death. That's all I'll say for now, she said cheerfully. I'm canceling the release. Adios. She retreated to his inner world, where she could rest without any disturbance. Sitting there in silence, he processed everything that happened for a couple of moments. No point stressing over it now. I'll see when Nami's powers fully awaken. He called out to Nami to withdraw her barrier of flames and open the door. Kisuke and Yoruchi, who were waiting at the end of the hallway, approached him. Yoruchi burst into laughter. Sneaky brat, you put a barrier Kido. Kisuke gently hit her head with his paper fan. We agreed to give him privacy, Yoruchi-san. Kazuya-san, let's talk inside. Once they were seated, Kisuke unfolded his paper fan to cover his mouth. Kazuya-san, I want you to enter the Gigai 13 and become a Shinigami. Kisuke dropped a bomb out of nowhere. Chapter 70, A Dangerous Mission. The moment Kisuke's proposal escaped his lips, a blanket of silence fell over the room. Yoruchi's eyes twinkled with amusement. Just as she predicted, Kazuya's composure was rattled. To him, Kisuke's suggestion was nothing less than a call to step back into his own haunted past, the Gigai 13, home to his murderer, the wolf in sheep's clothing Aizen Sōsuke. What? How could you ever think I'd say yes to that? Kazuya responded, his surprise masterfully acted. He had a hunch about Kisuke's real plan, but playing dumbfounded seemed necessary to keep things smooth. Kisuke sighed. I admit I have an amazing sense of humor, but this isn't one of my pranks. Kazuya-san, if you were to pick a squad between the 4th, 8th, or 13th squad, what would it be? I don't know. Why are you asking me? In this mission, your goal would be to steadily climb ranks and grow close to one of those captains, Yoruchi said as she sat up straight. When you're comfortable enough, reveal the truth about Aizen. Captain Unohana, Captain Yukitake, and Captain Kairaku are the closest to General Commander. They will do the job of convincing General Yamamoto. With your rich knowledge of the Suriidii and Aizen's plans, it won't take more than 20 years. 20 years. The words echoed in the depths of his mind, reverberating like a gong. For Kisuke and Yoruchi, 20 years was a blink. But for him, it was almost his entire life. Their plan is utterly useless. Aizen was absurdly strong even without his Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu. The only beings currently capable of fighting Aizen were the Royal Guards or the Sternritters. He doubted any captain, even Yamamoto, could apprehend Aizen. Yamamoto may have a chance of killing Aizen in a battle. Then he remembered the names of Captains Kasuke recited to him. Captain Unohana. Is she worth risking my life for? Absolutely. His determination wavered as soon he recalled the elegantly psychotic captain. Yoruichi gave a knowing nod as she noticed Kazuya's gradual understanding. They won't recognize you if you become a Shinigami with your current appearance, your soul form, I mean. Still, he drawled, reluctant despite the anticipation that bubbled within him at the prospect of meeting Unohana. Aizen will be there. I'm not confident I can fool Aizen. Why not do it yourself? His gaze flicked to Kasuke, questioning him to take up the challenge instead. This guy is prohibited from entering Senkuman, Yoruichi said as her gaze softened. Besides, wouldn't you feel at ease after you send Aizen to Central Great Underground Prison with your hands? While Yoruichi and Kasuke didn't harbor personal grudges, they would still relish the sight of Aizen's downfall. Yoruichi believed that Kazuya, too, should seize the opportunity to bring Aizen to justice, considering his own grim past with Aizen. I don't really care. The Central 46 might already be under Aizen's hypnosis. There would be nobody to judge Aizen. Seeing Kazuya's indecisiveness, Kasuke scratched the back of his head. Yoruichi-san, you promised to lend a helping hand if he resisted. Kasuke had foreseen multiple objections from Kazuya. Who in their right mind would voluntarily risk their life for a couple of Gigai? Yoruichi was his secret weapon in swaying Kazuya's decision. I know, lazy bum, Yoruichi retorted, playfully pawing at his waist. Kazuya, I'll be there with you. If things ever go wrong, I swore I'll get you out of there. Flash Goddess Yoruichi wouldn't let anyone lay a finger on you. Kazuya couldn't suppress a chuckle at the contrast between her solemn promise, her deeply masculine voice, and her adorably feline form. I'd get a little more confidence if this oath didn't come from a cat. Exploring the Seriidii with Yoruichi on his side, it was more than enough compensation from Kasuke. Yoruichi burst into laughter. I love this form. It provides an abundance of freedom. I don't even need to wear clothes. Freedom is priceless, he replied thoughtfully. I wouldn't have met my end if I'd fought for my freedom, but then, I wouldn't have crossed paths with those wonderful women without dying. My death was a new beginning. Kasuke lazily swished his paper fan. How admirable of you to view your death in such a positive light. He truly cherishes them, Yoruichi chimed in. You should have seen his face when he saw Sung-san wounded. He took down an Ajucha's Arrancar with a single punch. His head went splat just like a ripe watermelon. His rage alone had dissolved any suspicions Yoruichi harbored about his intentions. Someone who cherished his companions so deeply couldn't truly have an evil heart. So, Kasuke said, lifting his head to lock eyes with Kazuya, his gaze unwaveringly sincere. Will you help us banished fools? Say it, lad. Say that you want to take down evil with your hands. Under their hopeful gazes, he nodded in affirmation. I will. But, I have 4 conditions. Kasuke leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms over his chest. Go on, he urged, his tone light but eyes sharp, not missing a single detail. I need some time before I leave, Kazuya said, his gaze steady and resolute. Like a month. He needed time to spend time with his family as well as get used to his resurrection. Kasuke nodded, giving a casual wave of his hand. No problem. Yoruichi-san will not intervene if I feel like spending time with my companions here. What I am saying is, I can leave Soul Society at any moment. That's a very specific one, Yoruichi chuckled, the amusement clear in her eyes. Well, I'll humor this condition and let you fuck your women at any time. Keep your head out of the gutter, Shihoin-san, Kazuya continued with a calm expression. Next condition. I'll abandon my mission if any of my companions are in danger. Forget about this condition. They are safe here. They won't stay here forever, and I don't like to restrict anyone's freedom. Kasuke hummed, running his hand through his hair in thought. I'll be a heartless man if I deny this condition. Anything else? Kazuya shook his head, the slightest of smiles playing on his lips. That's all. Yoruchi-san, my memory of Suriidi's customs is hazy. Refresh my memory on some things later. Understanding the survival-driven focus of Hollow's lives, she didn't blame him for forgetting unnecessary details from his previous life. Sure thing. And just like that, a pact was established, the most unsuccessful plan to expose Aizen and a whimsical plan to seduce the captain of the 4th Squad, Ichiro Unohana. Partner, you're such a devil. It's a delight to see you play your games, Nami's excited voice echoed in his mind, as she found amusement from observing the unfolding drama. How will you become a Shinigami, though? She reminded him of the primary challenge tied to Kasuke's proposal. More importantly, how did Kasuke expect him to have the power to become a Shinigami? Chapter 71, A Loophole. Hold on, Kazuya called out, halting Kasuke and Yoruchi just as they were about to exit the room. We overlooked something. I'm a Hollow, a Quincy. How on earth am I supposed to transform into a Shinigami? He hadn't tested the power to revert to his soul form. How did Kasuke expect him to become a Shinigami? Kasuke turned around and brandished his wooden cane. Kazuya-san, could you shift into your Quincy form? I'll demonstrate a simple way to turn you into a Shinigami. But that won't work, he protested, his skepticism peeking through. When detached from physical body in his Quincy form, he'd retain his Quincy abilities. Could he develop Shinigami skills in that state? He was doubtful. Normally, Hollows are toxic to a Quincy, but your Hollow part is completely distinct from your Quincy part. I'm certain that you, as a Quincy soul, can master Shinigami arts like Kido and Zanpakuto. I'm betting on it, my friend. Kasuke was a firm believer in the theory that Kazuya's powers came from a Soul King fragment. The miraculous abilities of the Soul King's fragment gave him the faith that Kazuya could pull off another nigh impossible feat, acquiring the powers of both Shinigami and Quincy in one form. After all, Visored and Arrancars could wield powers of two races. There was nothing stopping a Quincy from manifesting their own Zanpakuto. Kazuya reflected on the implications of becoming a Shinigami through Kasuke's method. He would bypass the process of reverting his race to soul through the system. More importantly, he would be able to access the powers of both Shinigami and Quincy at the same time, partially achieving his goal of fusing the abilities of Hollow, Shinigami, and Quincy. And how will you stop my soul from degrading into a Hollow? When a human soul disconnects from their body, they gain a chain of fate. The chain of fate slowly corrodes over time, and at the end, the soul turns into a Hollow. Nobody knew if he was immune to this effect in his human form. Remember the Arrancar you killed in your visit to Hueco Mundo? Baragon, the king of Hueco Mundo, Kasuke said with a mischievous wink. Stop thinking of yourself as an ordinary being, you're the king of Hollows now. The king of Hollows, Yoruchi said with a gleaming gaze. Damn. We're in the presence of His Majesty. Too bad we don't give an F about status here. Neither do I. He shrugged. I'm still not convinced about leaving my body here for that long of a mission. Kasuke waved his hand. Don't worry. Your body will be researched, preserved by yours truly. Kazuya assumed a cold expression. You said research just now. My. Don't sweat over the little things. I don't perform non-consensual experiments, apart from some exceptions. Kasuke sized him from top to bottom. Perhaps you're worth making one. Yoruchi giggled. Relax, he is messing around. We can leave your body with your companions. The proposition awakened images in Kazuya's mind, a vision of Harribel cuddling with him, her tender voice whispering words of maternal affection, and her hand gently brushing his hair. He could easily envision Apache hugging him when nobody was around, sharing her problems with him in hushed whispers, and confessing how much she missed him. What will Mila Rose do? Use you as a punching bag. Sung-san will use you as a dildo. Kazuya shivered at the thought and quickly transformed into his Quincy form. The red gem embedded in his forehead dissolved as he turned into his least flashy form. Urahara-san. Kasuke pointed his cane at Kazuya, the bottom part inscribed with an intricate emblem, a skull encased in blue flames. This was Gokon Teko, a device known for forcibly separating the soul from the body, incorporated directly into Kisuke's cane. Very well, then. The world shifted as he found himself pushed out of his body. His physical form slumped lifelessly to the floor. He summoned his status, his eyes flitting through the rows of text hastily. General information. Name Kazuya Ishihara. Gender male. Race soul. Ryuryoku level great level captain class plus. Alignment neutral evil. Affiliation unnamed faction. Racial abilities. Racial manipulation, spirit particle manipulation. Mastery level intermediate. Harankiaku, spirit movement technique. Mastery level intermediate. Innate abilities. Silvery voice, your voice can influence people's state of mind. The ability works best in persuading or seducing someone. Crumbling heart, human you can walk unhindered upon any surface. Crumbling heart, soul you are unaffected by the corrosion of time. High-speed regeneration, your wounds regenerate automatically. The time required depends on the severity of wounds. Acquired abilities. Seduction, the ability to seduce those of the opposite gender. Mastery level intermediate. Riding, the ability to ride a mount. Mastery level intermediate. Arithmetic, the ability to process arithmetic problems. Mastery level intermediate. Provocation, the ability to anger people with your tongue. Mastery level intermediate. Equipment. Spirit clothes. His system acknowledged him as a mere soul, ignoring his racial abilities like racial manipulation and Harankiaku. The system's assessment of him as a Quincy soul was due to the fact that he hadn't unlocked the Quincy race. It also refused to identify him as a soul, human, for some odd reasons. Kisuke is right. He could gain Shinigami abilities while retaining the racial manipulation and Harankiaku, at least in theory. Kisuke had perhaps helped him find a loophole in the system, letting him be a Shinigami or Quincy hybrid until the Quincy race unlocked in his system. The decision to unlock it solely relied upon him. This is nuts. Shinigami are ordinary souls who have learned some flashy demon arts and the power of Zanpakuto. Do you know where Otsunomiya, the creator of Zanpakuto, got his inspiration? I don't know. Hollows probably. He threw out a wild guess. Yes. Hollows predate all the races. Even the Soul King was born in opposition to the first Minos. Hollows directly manifest their inner heart, the core of their soul, and the Shinigami took a safer approach by imprinting their inner heart on a blank soul. Those blank souls were named Asachi, the core component of a Shinigami's Zanpakuto. Where did this knowledge come from? Even he, a Bleach fanboy, didn't know as much as Nami. From the Hueco Mundo's soil, which gave birth to you. You and I are the amalgamation of hundreds and thousands of dead Minos, which also includes the original Hollows. He was unfazed by the revelation. His origin didn't mean anything to him. Original Hollows? As in the primordial Hollows? Yeah, Ulquiorra is one of those. They used to terrorize the world until the Soul King killed them. You have, of course, diluted powers while Ulquiorra is a pure original Hollow born in the depths of the pit of original Hollow's ashes. Did you just call me bootleg Ulquiorra? It doesn't matter. You'll grow far stronger than his peak form. Oh! Let's talk about the crumbling heart, soul. Does it make me immortal? Right now he had two versions of crumbling heart enabled in his soul form. The new ability would have been a massive help in fighting Barragan's senescence. Alas, he awakened it too late. Welcome to eternal life, partner. You won't die of old age, ever. He tried not to think about the severe implications of his immortality, like being the only one alive among his family at some point in his life. Every good thing comes at cost. Like, delicious meat needs the sacrifice of a life, the conception of a new life comes at the cost of countless unborn's death. Okay, stop. Don't make me think about that stuff. Let's talk about something positive, partner. You're one step closer to achieving the perfect vessel. If you find a full-powered Hogyoku, like the one Aizen merged with, will be able to merge all of your forms and enhance all of your abilities to the next level. You'll become unstoppable. The prospect was alluring, but it involved dealing with Aizen, which was easier said than done. Partner, new goal, scam the Hogyoku out of Aizen and merge it with Kasuke's Hogyoku. Kazuya couldn't help but smirk at his Zanpakuto's audacity. She was speaking as if Aizen was just a gullible child who would fall for the cheap tricks. Kazuya-san, don't smirk. Kasuke's voice pulled him out of his deep musings, a hint of concern seeping into his usually light-hearted tone. You were lost somewhere. I was having an interesting conversation with my Zanpakuto spirit. Your Zanpakuto spirit stays inside your inner world even when you transform. Kasuke stroked his stubble, a thoughtful expression on his face as he contemplated the unique complexity of Kazuya's soul. That aside, my claims were true. You don't have a chain of fate. You look like a natural soul born in the Soul Society. Kazuya stretched his body. I guess you were correct. Turning doubters into believers is my special ability. Yoruchi snarled. This idiot is such a narcissist. Kazuya chuckled. I'll call it a day now. You're the reason I can't go on a date today. You horny brat, Yoruchi said with a giggle. Don't get discovered by the vice captain patrolling the town. Roger, Mom. Oh, sorry. My tongue slipped. Yoruchi sharply glared at him. I know what you're up to, brat. Kazuya assumed a clueless expression. What are you talking about? I should return to my friends. He had to inform the ladies about his Zanpakuto, especially Harribel, who loved the egg like her child. He was prepared for her to snap out. Just call her mommy. She will calm down. Get out of my head. Hi-ha-ha. Chapter 72, Constant Flow. As Kazuya walked back to his comrades, his gaze swept over Surachi and Mila Rose, who had abandoned their sparring session. The group had assembled together, radiating a familial bond that reminded him of a gathering around a bonfire. Sun and Apache were bundled together, sharing the plush softness of a large towel, their bodies close enough to feel each other's warmth. The outward warmth evaporated as soon as he heard Sun teasing Apache. Harribel's aqua-green eyes widened in shock as Kazuya returned empty-handed. She'd sensed the abrupt disappearance of the egg's Ryatsu earlier. Her sharp gaze drifted to the radiant red gem glinting in his forehead, discovering the fate of the egg without any explanation. The corners of Mila Rose's mouth turned upwards into a sly grin. Did you finally see your child, Mom? He revealed a bright smile. The egg hatched while I was in Kasuke's room. Congratulations, Mila, you're finally a dad. A scowl instantly marred Mila Rose's previously triumphant expression. Enough with those jokes. What emerged from the egg? The group leaned in, their bodies taut with anticipation, their eyes shining with curiosity. Even Surachi was drawn in, captivated by the enigma of his one-of-a-kind Zanpakuto. Rubbing the back of his head in an endearing, casual gesture, he shrugged. A bird. The revelation led to a collective sigh, their previous excitement deflating like a punctured balloon. It should have been a chicken, Mila Rose lamented, disappointment clear on her face. What a missed opportunity to tease you. Harribel exhaled a sigh. I'm glad it happened safely. Despite the unexpected turn of events, her primary worry had always been for Kazuya. As long as he was unscathed, any outcome was acceptable. Besides, she was delighted with his power-up. Apache, Sun, it's already dark out there. I'm gonna grab some sleeping clothes for you. Kasuke and Nami had consumed much of his evening. He saw this as an opportunity to plan for a whole day's date tomorrow, a strategic move to soften their defenses before he revealed his intention to depart for Suryadia later this month. Sun narrowed her eyes into suspicious slits. You promised to take us shopping. I won't let you wiggle out of it. Yeah, Mila Rose chimed in for Sun's support. I'm tired of wearing your shirt. Gimme new clothes. A quick clarification calmed their discontent and dispelled the misunderstanding. Mila Rose broke into a broad grin, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. A full day dedicated to us. Skull, you're kinda reliable. Of course. You all are my sweethearts. He turned to the only one who couldn't accompany him tomorrow due to her striking wings. Surachi, I'll talk to Kasuke about your Zanpakuto. He'll find a solution. He'd refuse Kasuke's mission if the shopkeeper turned down his request. The mission gave him a massive leverage. You can repair her soul yourself. How? Once I evolve to give you a full resurrection. Can we speed up the process by getting you hollows to eat? Yuck. I'm not interested in their disgusting souls. Bring me a source of pure and untainted energy, like the heart of a virgin maiden. I'm kidding. I don't know how we can speed up the process. Surachi cast her gaze downwards, avoiding eye contact. You don't have to. Mila Rose placed a hand over Surachi's mouth. She got hit in the head earlier, making her speak the opposite of her true intentions. She is saying she'll be happy if you do that for her. Only Mila Rose could spin such outrageous lies with unwavering conviction. Surachi's purple eyes shot daggers at Mila Rose as she bit down on her hand. What is wrong with you? What is right with me, you mean? Mila Rose laughed heartily as she crossed her arms. Everything. I'm perfect. Only your figure is perfect, he corrected her. Rest is a work in progress. Sun giggled softly. Era, who gave you the permission to roast my rose? Only I have the right to call her dumb, stupid, idiot, knucklehead, airhead bimbo, a lost cause, a piece of. A swift throw from Mila Rose saw her sword sailing through the air, the blade passing perfectly through the towel shared between Sun and Apache. You're getting on my nerves, Snake. Oof. Apache wrapped the towel around her body, so only her head and neck were visible. Can they ever stop fighting? Harribel shook her head. Probably not. The next morning, Kazuya stirred awake to an unusual weight on his chest. It was an unexpected sensation given the comfortable futons Kasuke had provided for them. Mila Rose was sprawled at his side, one arm flung across his face, a heavy leg resting on him. Sun was using his arm as a pillow, while Apache, in a far more compromising position, had her hands resting on his belt and her head comfortably nestled on his lower abdomen. Waking up surrounded by his comrades was a common occurrence back in Hueco Mundo, but less expected after they had become Arrancars. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Will you impregnate these women? Childbirth is a natural process of life. Though, I have to make our relationship official first. Sun's feelings for him were clear, he expected no rejection from her. Apache would likely remain bashful until he presented her with a sincere confession. Harribel remained an oddball, her thoughts and intentions as mysterious as the first day he met her. On one hand, she saw him as her child, on the other hand, she trusted him as their leader, relying on him to protect her companions. He couldn't figure her out. As for Mila Rose, she was whimsical yet serious about relationships. It would take time for her to trust, but once she did, she'd lay down her life for him. Does she look like someone who doesn't trust you? His eyes slid over to Mila Rose once more. His shirt barely draped over her, revealing tantalizing glimpses of her figure. The half-dressed state was more provocative than nudity, as it left much to his imagination. With a sharp inhale, he forced his gaze away before his lower half reacted and disrupted Apache's sleep. She is kind of an airhead. Several hours later. Within the stately confines of the Ishida mansion, Kazuya, Izumi, and Lisa sat around the dining table, engaged in a quiet breakfast. Wani-chan, can I borrow some cash? Izumi tilted her head, strands of black hair covering her face. Sure. How much do you need? He leaned closer to Lisa, the subtle scent of her perfume tickling his senses. Mei-chan, how much do I need to buy clothes for my friends? I also have plans to take them around the town. Lisa's eyes narrowed at him. His audacity to ask her for advice after rejecting her date, a date he proposed initially, instigated a sudden urge to smack him. Around 50,000 yen. Kazuya's eyebrows raised in surprise. 50,000 yen wouldn't even cover a person's rent in his time. But he reminded himself, this was 1950. Prices were different. 50,000 yen? Izumi's voice was soft, her smile tender. All right. I'll have it withdrawn right away. Her willingness, almost eagerness to fulfill his request made him uncomfortable. It felt like he was taking advantage of her generosity. As Izumi excused herself to order her servants to withdraw the cash, Kazuya turned to Lisa. Are you still upset about the date? She rolled her eyes. No. You definitely are. How about we go out tomorrow? He casually asked her for a date. Judging by the bright look in her eyes, she appreciated the proposal. She cleared her throat. I'm busy tomorrow. Too bad then. With those words, he pushed his chair back and left the room. Lisa was left behind, dumbfounded. She had been playing hard to get, expecting him to insist a little. For all his faults, he was a 10 out of 10 for his appearance, a good candidate for her first date. But he accepted her words at face value, leaving her embarrassed and a little frustrated. I fucked up, but it works every time in romance novels. Chapter 73, Incentive. Kyan had a soft spot for ohagi, a classic delicacy of rice cakes filled with red bean paste. He, of course, couldn't return to the Soul Society just for his cravings. Instead, he slipped into his Gigai and embarked on a quest for his desired treat in the bustling marketplace of Karakura town. Guided by the tendrils of fragrant scents wafting in the air, he quickly found a little restaurant serving his favorite food seemingly more delicious than the ones he ate in the Seriidii. The living world is so resourceful. As he indulged in his favorite snack, a group of women roaming the market streets caught his attention. Like a vibrant splash of color on a monochromatic canvas, they drew in countless gazes. A blonde, olive-skinned woman in a royal outfit. Her regal expression made her seem like a queen of some country. Next was a woman with dark, honeyed skin and tumbling brown waves cascading from beneath a white cowboy hat. Her outfit consisted of a white top, paired with brown pants and a sweeping white cape. Then there was a woman with striking heterochromatic eyes, a stylish white fedora sitting atop her head. She wore black pants and a white top with bold red sleeves. And lastly, an elegant figure adorned in a traditional kimono, her olive green hair arranged with artistic precision, adorned with a white clip and delicate flowers. A paper umbrella protected her porcelain skin from the harsh rays of the sun. She exuded an air of nobility reminiscent of the prestigious 5 noble families in the Seriidii, actually 4 since the Shiba clan hardly put effort in their appearance. Most members of the Shiba clan hardly acted like nobility. All of them seemed to be of different ethnicities, yet they had one thing in common: they were all just as attractive as the man they followed. Kazuya? Yeah, it's him. Kyan caught sight of the shopping bags cradled in Kazuya's grasp and let out an empathetic sigh. The mere thought of shopping was a tedious ordeal for him. Escorting not 1 but 4 women on shopping was akin to a death sentence for him. He was grateful that his wife wasn't demanding. Their Ryatsu is strange. Are they also Quincy like Kazuya? Kazuya's gaze fleetingly met Kyan's, and in response, Kyan lifted his hand in a casual wave. But Kazuya quickly diverted his attention, returning to converse with the woman clad in the green kimono. Is he ignoring me on purpose? It's not like I'll steal your women. Shaking his head, Kyan concluded it might be time to head back and conclude his investigation on the Arrancar case. How does it feel to ignore a good friend? Kazuya chose to remain silent in response to Nami's probing question, instead fixing his gaze on the orange horizon above him. The day had been a whirlwind of shared experiences, ones he wouldn't have found as fulfilling if he was alone. Shopping had been the most time-consuming endeavor, with Sung Sun showcasing a pickiness for fashion that perfectly mirrored her sassy, princess-like demeanor. Apache's favorite activity came after shopping, having sushi at one of the finest restaurants in Naruki City. Harribel derived the most joy from the simplest of activities, a serene walk through a renowned garden, while Mila Rose enjoyed breaking arcade machines and raging at the Raid Crane games. The experiences didn't align with the Japan of the 1950s that he was familiar with, a country still in recovery from the aftermath of the Second World War. Karakura Town and Naruki City felt more like vibrant metropolises beyond their time. His experience wasn't actually that different from his date with Yumi in 2022. One thing was certain, Mila Rose, Apache, and Sun had a blast. Harribel, always one to find happiness in the joy of others, seemed content to just be in their company. It's the fictional world of Bleach. Your logic won't apply here. Fair enough, he replied, shaking his head before turning his attention back to the group. Hop on. Mila Rose urged. What are you waiting for? The evening had drawn them to their final stop, the city's amusement park and its towering Ferris wheel, a spectacle that had piqued Sung-sun's curiosity. Kazuya boarded the cabin before Sung-sun and Mila Rose took his opposite seats. Typically designed for couples, the cabin didn't have enough space for all 5 of them. However, Harribel had insisted that everyone share the same cabin, an indication of their growing bonds. He handed the bags to Mila Rose and Sung-sun and beckoned Apache. Come on, dear. With a groan, Apache settled into his lap, her arms curling around his neck. Her pose was a sitting rendition of the Princess Carrie. Her cheeks bloomed a deep shade of pink as she avoided his gaze. Why do I have to do this? Sung-sun shot her a cold glare. Quit complaining. My kimono is the only reason you're getting this chance. No more fighting, Harribel said as she entered the cabin and sat by his side. Kazuya, I don't want to ruin the good mood, but you need to reveal the reason for your relationship with Keisuke Urahara. She revealed her true intention behind squeezing everyone into the same cabin. It offered great privacy away from onlookers. Yes, Apache agreed from his lap and tightened her grip around his neck. I won't get off until you tell us. He hadn't anticipated Harribel to bring this up after a day filled with such memorable experiences. It was apparent that the question had been gnawing at her since yesterday. I promised to tell you. So, here it goes. A look of shock spread across all 4 faces as they dealt with the reality of him being a Shinigami. He had initially used the lie to take advantage of Keisuke. Now, he had to maintain this lie, or the situation would become more complicated. You used to be a Shinigami? Nami, I'm not in the mood. Lies require commitment. You have to live with the veil of dishonesty you crafted with your hands. Nami. Fine. I'll shut up. Harribel's hand found its way onto his shoulder, her touch gentle yet firm. Kazuya, when did this memory resurface? A couple of days after I joined your group. She heaved a sigh of relief before smiling. You should have told us earlier. Sung-sun's lips formed an amused smile, her eyes glinting sadistically. She never thought she'd see an anxious expression on his face. Kazuya was anxious about our reactions. How utterly adorable. Mila Rose nudged her. He had the same face when you were almost dead. Really? That makes me so happy. Their half-hearted reactions took a weight off of his chest. Of course I'm worried. As cheesy as it sounds, you all are my only family in this world. And you are mine, Apache said with a strong determination in her voice. Family. I didn't mean to say it like that. Haha, you're so cute. He kissed her cheeks and turned his gaze over to Harribel. Am I forgiven for hiding the truth? Harribel nodded. There is nothing else you could have done in that situation. True, Mila Rose interjected. What will you do now? I plan to return to the Soul Society as a Shinigami. His sudden confession dropped the air by over 10 degrees. Harribel stared at him as if she didn't expect him to come out with these words. A genuine look of shock plastered across Apache's face. What? You want to leave us? His arms encircled her waist in reassurance. Relax, my dear. It's just a temporary leave to solve some issues over there. I'll finish the work and return to everyone. Harribel, stop before you release your Ryatsu. He, of course, had the opportunity to leave everything and relocate to another city with his women. But he had promised to live his life to the fullest without regrets. Visiting the Soul Society had always been a desire. Nah, dude. You just want to fuck some Shinigami pussies. Shush. Harribel sighed. It's too dangerous. Let's go to Hueco Mundo. Kisuke can't force you if you leave now. She was an honorable woman, but his safety was above everything. This mission was different from the living world. The Soul Society was a world filled with Shinigami, the people responsible for purifying hollows. She wouldn't be able to rush to his aid if anything happened to him there. The separation of 4 days filled her with haunting thoughts. There was no way she'd be able to live without him for a year or more. He couldn't help but chuckle at her overly protective demeanor. You're acting like my mommy again. I appreciate the sentiments, but let me go through this. I won't get hurt. His light teasing was enough to banish her worries momentarily, and a blush crept onto Harribel's face. Ha! Worrying about someone doesn't make me their mother. Sun, tell this misguided kid. Sun thought for a moment, her finger tapping her chin. In this context, Harribel, you're actually acting like his mother. He is a grown-up man. Let him make his own decisions. It seemed Harribel had chosen the wrong person to back her up, the realization causing her to reassess her stance. He placed a hand on her thigh. Don't let fear and worries dictate your life. HM. Mila Rose nodded. It's Skull we're talking about. He took down Barragan on his own. I doubt any Shinigami can kill him with his godlike regeneration. True. He concurred with Mila Rose's opinion, even though he was fully aware there were many Shinigami who could pose a significant threat to him. I promise I won't let anything kill me before I make at least one baby with all 4 of you. He stated his end goal with a serious look in his eyes. He won't let anyone interfere between him and them. This possessiveness, Nami's voice echoed in his mind. You're starting to sound like a Yandere. I am a Yandere. Shudder. Harribel patted her belly, pondering his words. She had expected these words to come out of his mouth sooner or later. After all, he had shown a passion for her time and again. Her maternal instinct overpowered her romantic feelings, which were once again overpowered by another desire, the desire to have a child of her own. She couldn't imagine having a child with anyone other than him. Her heart was a mess of conflicting desires. Apache pinched his neck. Why do you want all 4 of us? Aren't you asking for too much? A knowing smile danced on his lips as though he'd been expecting this question. Most men would consider themselves lucky to have just one of you, but I don't want to settle with just one and live with regrets. I want all of you, so close that I can kiss and hug you anytime. I guess I'm a greedy man. The 4 of them were left speechless. Sun eventually muttered, clearly at a loss for words. How bold of you. Guess it can't be helped then. Hollows together strong, Apache mumbled. Big family unkillable. Her words were incoherent, like she was under the influence of overwhelming happiness and couldn't think straight. He looked at Mila Rose. So? Stop pressuring me into agreeing like this. Mila Rose retorted, clearly flustered. All right, I'll consider the idea of taking you as a mate, but only if you make it back alive. Harribel's eyes widened in realization. My answer is the same as Mila Rose. If she couldn't stop him from leaving, she could incentivize him to return. A suitable incentive for the man who would risk everything for her family. He hugged Apache with more force. Even God can't kill me now. Let's celebrate this moment with something special. Curiosity sparked in Mila Rose's eyes. What do you have in mind? He grinned. A buffet. You'll be my dessert. Chapter 74 through 76, Love. Anxious eyes darted around the modest yet tastefully furnished bedroom. There, at the room's heart, lay a plush bed adorned with 2 crisp pillows. Alongside, a modest table hosted a flower pot, lending a touch of life to the room. On the wall hung a clock, its steady tick-tock resonating with her throbbing heart. She perched on the edge of the bed, her senses prickling as a quiet murmur began to intrude upon the calm. The sound rose gradually, from distant, muffled impacts to the unmistakable patter of footsteps. The door creaked open. The man for whom she had been waiting stepped in, a towel hanging from his neck, his white hair dripping with water. He had emerged from the bath in just a pair of underwear, while she remained fully clothed, save for the white fedora concealing her horn. "Still anxious?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered, her trembling voice betraying her claim. "I ain't anxious." He leaned against the door, shutting it with a drawn-out creak. As he settled onto the bed, a flicker of desire sparked in his eyes. 2 months had passed since he started his new life, since he last engaged in any sexual activity. 2 months of living with a sexy woman like Harribel, 2 agonizing months of sexual frustration to be unleashed on the beautiful tomboy. "Poor girl is gonna break." "Stop staring at me," she said, a nervous flutter tugging at her heart. "What do you want?" "Playing the ignorant fool, are we?" "I am not," she retorted. "We've been with everyone all day. Why are we here alone now?" It puzzled her that he had sent everyone else home yet brought her here. She had some inkling of his intentions but was apprehensive about acknowledging them. "Who said we're sleeping?" She swallowed hard, her thoughts racing. What else are we supposed to do on a bed?" "You silly little goose," he trailed his whisper as he drew closer and kissed her cheeks. "Remember our promise? I'll let you ride me when you become an Arrancar. Time to fulfill that promise." Lifting her gaze, her heterochromatic eyes locked onto his blue ones. "Get on all fours then. I'll ride you as my mount." She pushed his chest. "Come on." He caught her hand and used his grip to pull her into his embrace. His lips sought hers, and he kissed her slowly, almost tantalizingly. A sudden electric thrill darted up her spine, her heart fluttering from the hormonal surge unleashed by her first kiss. The engagement of lips set her heart on fire. He broke away from the kiss, a playful grin adorning his face. "I'll have to educate you about the ride I promised." She sighed and nestled into his chest. His scent brought her a flood of nostalgic memories. From discovering him in the wastelands of Hueco Mundo to sharing an intimate kiss in this quiet room, they had strayed far from their days as wanderers. Her affection for him had deepened gradually. Perhaps it was because he had dragged her out of a pathetic cycle of survival and mere existence, or perhaps he had given her the confidence and courage to reach new heights. He was the reason she could proudly claim to be near the food chain in the Hollow Kingdom. He was her first true friend, and possibly, her first mate. Part of her wished they were still alone, while another part felt grateful for having found endearing companions in Harribel, Mila Rose, Sun, and even Sirachi. Feeling nostalgic, she rubbed her face against his chest. "Are we doing it here?" He was gentle as he let his hands roam over her soft curves, holding her tightly against his own hard body. "Yeah, I'll make you my mate tonight." She wrapped her arms around him. "Don't give me babies. I want to become a Vasto Lord before any baby shenanigans." He expected nothing less from her. Her obsession with achieving Vasto Lorde-Class dominated her priorities unless he was involved. "No worries. I'll be careful." With her explicit consent, he drew her into his arms, laying her down gently so her head nestled comfortably against the plush pillow. He hovered over her and showered her cheeks and lips with light, teasing kisses, a game of playful seduction for him that left her aching for more. The teasing was fun for him, but for her, it was torture. "Jerk!" Her hands found his shoulders and yanked him closer. Their lips met in a searing kiss. This time, he took the lead in showing her the true experience of kissing. She awkwardly opened her mouth in response to his probing. The innocent deer tried her best to keep up with him in their sloppy exchange of saliva. Her novice exploration grew into a tantalizing dance of passion. "Change into your hollow form," she murmured, her voice a hushed whisper, as she draped her arms around his neck. "Do it for me." "Sure." No sooner had the words left his lips than horns sprouted from his head, and a crimson gem appeared on his forehead. Folding his wings, he nestled his face in her neck, his lips grazing her skin with kisses that made her squirm beneath him. His hands roamed around her voluptuous body, pausing to undo buttons of her shirt, each loosened button unveiling more of her seductive tits to his hungry gaze. "Ah!" she moaned softly, biting her lip as a wave of anticipation washed over her. "Something is happening to me." His hands traced the contours of her bra, the fabric tearing away under his eager touch. Her glorious tits sprang free with a jiggle that awakened the beast inside him. He hungrily cupped her mound and pushed them against each other. The way you're sucking on my tits it's intense and lewd. It's just the tip of the iceberg." He buried his face in between her squeezed breasts, tickling her with his nose. The warmth and softness brought out a childlike euphoria in him. "I love boobs, duh." She couldn't help but laugh at his innocent act. "I fucking knew you loved big boobs from the way you gawked at Mila Rose and Harribel. It was so obvious." Her cheeks reddened as she realized the implications of her words spoken in the heat of the moment. She had just given him ammunition to tease her more. "Oh!" He chuckled, his tongue tracing wet patterns around her nipple. "So, you wanted a sexy body like Mila Rose to seduce me. You're also a perv, all right." Her back arched at his teasing touch, her moan filling the room. I wanted you to look at me the same way you looked at Mila Rose." Yes, I was jealous of her and Harribel. Now that they were together, she didn't feel much about being honest about her envious feelings. Rather, she looked at him eagerly as though waiting for him to judge her bad side. "I made you insecure," he whispered and gave her a soft smile. "I'll try to avoid these situations in the future." He was inexperienced in handling more than one relationship. Now he had the challenge of balancing his affection among 4 lovers and keeping them all happy. The responsibility, however, also came with 4 lovers to care for his physical and mental well-being. /n use your imagination, you freaky frog, you know what happened next. Chapter 77, Riches and Waifus. Kazuya had decided early on that the claustrophobic confines of Kasuke's underground chamber were no place for his companions. It was, in many ways, more limiting than the Hueco Mundo. Thus, he made it his mission to secure them a mansion where they could live safely and often go out to explore the city as they wished. So, in the following days, he embarked on a solo adventure in Karakura town and its neighbor Naruki city. His target demographic consisted of rich housewives, regardless of their age. With gentle persuasion, he convinced them to part with a small percentage of their wealth. No one faced bankruptcy, yet he became filthy rich. After a few challenging days, he could be seen lounging poolside, clad in swimming trunks, spending relaxing time with his women. "You got both riches and bitches, partner." I couldn't invite Surachi. Despite his best efforts to persuade Surachi, she had remained as immovable as a mountain. He had so anticipated seeing her in a goth swimsuit. Her half-Arrancar form appealed to him in more ways than she imagined. "Dude, get a grip on your horny or you'll end up with more women than the fingers on your hands." "I see no problem with that." "Should have known better. You have become too free-minded and loose, like a hoe on the streets. Freedom, it's like taking a bath. Once you get used to it, you can never return. It's addicting. Too much of anything is bad, partner. Mark my words." "I still can't believe you got this for us," whispered Mila Rose from a deck chair behind him. Sung-Sun, Apache, and Harribel relaxed on their own chairs next to Mila Rose. "Skull, how did you pull it off?" "The best way to keep a secret is to forget it." "So, yeah. I forgot." She had been insistent about discovering the source of his wealth, but once again, he deflected her with a vague answer. Sung-Sun pushed her sunglasses to her head before putting them back on. "Why do you want to know the secret? You want to get rich like him?" "Probably," Apache responded, a giggle accompanying her words. "Mila Rose will buy a restaurant just to eat sushi every day." Mila Rose's cheeks flushed. How come everyone guessed her intentions without even trying? Was she really that predictable? Casting a sidelong glance over his shoulder, his lips curved into a teasing smile. Rose, you've been ordering sushi 3 times a day ever since our date. Harribel stretched her arms, yawning after all the recent relaxation. If that wasn't enough, you've been gushing about its exquisite taste for hours. Even Harribel had joined the teasing, no longer observing from the sidelines. She had become just a little more active during their conversations recently. He couldn't help but compare Harribel to the hero mentioned in You Either Die a Hero, or You Live Long Enough to See Yourself Become the Villain. Mila Rose's blush deepened into a fierce scarlet. I'm sorry, okay. I shouldn't be so passionate about things I enjoy. Everyone chuckled at her outburst. Unintentional or not, Mila Rose's vibrant demeanor added a dash of liveliness to the group. Slipping off her sunglasses, Sun took a sharp gaze at him. By the way, you haven't given our swimsuit any rating. He lapsed into thoughtful silence, letting his eyes drift over each of them, beginning with Harribel. Clad in a stark white bikini and a midnight black pareo that contrasted her sun-kissed skin, her aura had mellowed compared to her Arrancar outfit. Blonde hair, white crown, tan skin, black and white bikini, everything is vibrant but pleasing to eyes. Easily 10 out of 10. Harribel revealed a smile almost imperceptible to eyes. Thanks. He nodded, his gaze then veering towards Mila Rose. She leaned back with her hand behind her head, in a pose that accentuated her voluptuous boobs clad in an unblemished purple swimsuit. A matching pareo accentuated the graceful curve of her waist. Purple. A classic choice to bring out the charm of your naturally dark skin and hair. The pareo adds a lovely touch to your long, toned legs. I'll give you an 8 out of 10. She was easily a 10 in his heart, but he couldn't overinflate her ego now, could he? A frown creased her face at his less-than-perfect rating. Why did you cut 2 points? I am the sexiest one here. Clearly, she was upset at not receiving a perfect score like Harribel. Be happy with what you got, Sun said. Rate me. Sun appeared less striking in her minimalist black bikini, a loose black hoodie with sleeves hanging long past her hands draped over it. Black color for your pale skin is a great choice. I have no compliments for your fashion sense other than the fact you're a 10 in both appearance and personality. He was a sucker for her endless tease and mature demeanor. Era, darling. Are you perhaps a soap? Because you're so damn smooth. Not the soap puns. Sun giggled. Let's rate Apache. His gaze shifted towards Apache, who was clad in a white, frilly swimsuit top and denim shorts. A red hoodie was casually thrown over her attire, while her Zanpakuto served as ornamental bracelets around her wrists. Apache squirmed under his attentive scrutiny. I don't care about your rating. All of his sweet talk during sex, which they had been doing non-stop every night behind everyone's backs, had made her a little more resistant to his voice. Yet, the warmth in his gaze stirred a familiar blush on her cheeks, evoking memories too lewd to be put into words. Before he could rate her, an uninvited black cat scurried into the scene. Wow, Brett. You're having a pool party without me, your senior. If it isn't the old hag of Shohoin clan. You're kinda wrong. No parties here. We're just chilling. Yoruchi rolled her eyes. There are a couple of classes between a hag and a young woman like me. I don't care, he said with a shrug. Anyways, come sit on my lap. I'm good with cats. Nope. I can lick my furs clean on my own. Mila Rose stirred from her seat, approaching Yoruchi. I hold you in high regard, but the only man allowed here is Skull. Please leave. She seemed more unnerved than the others, who remained quite indifferent to Yoruchi's presence. Then again, she was the only one with a particular distaste for men. The black cat laughed at Mila Rose's somewhat sincere request. Can I join you if I don't act like a man? Befuddled by the unexpected response, Mila Rose could only gape as Yoruchi vaulted into the air. A smoke screen enveloped her mid-leap, and when it dispersed, she was no longer a cat. A dark-skinned woman with vibrant purple hair stood before them, her golden eyes filled with mischief. She broke any illusion of her true form being that of a male. Yoruichi bent her body and stretched her arms. Ah, it feels good stretching like this. Chapter 78, Invitation. Performing a fluid sequence of stretches, Yoruichi Shihoin coaxed her lithe body into wakefulness. Her muscles, unlike the brute strength of Mila Rose, were defined by agility and flexibility, resembling the finesse of a panther ready to pounce. The early sun reflected off her dark skin, casting a lustrous sheen that emphasized her impressive physique. Yoruichi then surveyed the varied reactions around her, hoping that her unexpected transformation had its intended impact. Mila Rose was left aghast, her brows knitting into an expression of sheer bewilderment, while Apache huffed in a noticeably irked fashion. Harribel maintained her typical aloof air, eyes unfazed, whereas an amused smirk played on Sung Sun's lips. However, Yoruichi found herself most intrigued by Kazuya. His expression, a puzzling mixture of disappointment, was a far cry from what she had anticipated. He's known me from the start. Why the disappointment? I don't look inferior to his women, do I? Keen to satiate her curiosity, she gently probed Kazuya for the reason behind his unusual reaction. I expected you to be a lot taller. And his answer puzzled her. She was 156 centimeters, a woman of average height in the Soul Society. Then again, she was facing a man taller than Kasuke, standing at almost 6.5 feet tall. She'd naturally appear smaller in comparison. Yoruichi placed her hands on her hips. You know how age works for powerful souls. Who knows, maybe I can grow a couple more inches. Nice optimism, he said with a round of applause. Flashing your beautiful body to everyone, Shihoin-san definitely lives up to her title, the Flash Goddess. Yoruichi's smirk widened. I like your interpretation of the Flash Goddess. It lends a whole new level of interest to my legacy. Mila Rose, finally regaining her composure from the initial shock, pointed an accusing finger at Yoruichi. Wait, you're a woman? She cast a glance around, realizing that no one shared her surprise. I mean, I understand Kazuya knowing this, but why are you all acting like it's nothing? Was I the only one in the dark? A grin crossed Apache's face. It was pretty obvious from our first meeting. Sun nodded. Yoruichi was baiting us from the get-go. I saw her try hard attempts from miles away. Harribel feigned ignorance to Mila Rose's gaze, attempting not to deepen Mila Rose's embarrassment. There was something endearing about Mila Rose's occasional denseness. It stemmed from her unwavering trust in her senses, rarely questioning what she saw or heard. Yoruichi-san. The sudden interruption of a cold voice from behind Yoruichi startled everyone. It was Lisa looking at Yoruichi with exasperation. Don't flash your titties in front of a man engaged to multiple women. Standing there in an aqua green bikini that complemented her eyes, Lisa held a shopping bag in her hand. Kazuya's gaze inevitably wandered towards her ample chest, noting silently that her bust was somewhat larger than Apache's. Boobs, the first thing a man sees in a woman. Titties are truly the bane of all men. Lisa tossed the bag towards Yoruichi. Enough fooling around. Put this on. Hi. In a well-choreographed motion, Lisa took off her glasses and flung them to Kazuya before taking a graceful dive into the pool. She swam like she owned the place, completely at ease, despite the fact it was her first visit. Kazuya expected nothing less from the sassy full-time maid. I take it that you like this place. A historic Gothic mansion with Victorian architectural elements. You certainly have good taste. I have a wonderful taste in everything, or you wouldn't be allowed here. Lisa was grateful she had her back turned on everyone, or they would have seen her blush. The subtle compliment caught her off guard. Are you not returning to Ishida Mansion? She shifted the topic. About that. Tada! Yoruichi's jubilant exclamation seized everyone's attention. She stood there, striking a provocative pose with her butt sticking out towards them. She had both of her hands pulling the tight black swimsuit over her ass. Rather than an orange swimsuit, she went for a black one with hints of violet and white. One might have mistaken her display as a seductive act. But he knew better. It was Yoruichi, always the tease, always dancing on the edge of playfulness, never crossing the line into the serious. He had to spend almost 20 years with her. There was no way he would let her playful antics slide unpunished in the Soul Society. She was getting bedded one way or another. "Pretty good, I say," he replied. "Are you offering your ass for spanking?" She pulled her hands back quickly and turned around, crossing her arms with a smirk. "Someone's getting worked up over a hag, huh?" "No one said hags can't be attractive. We have a guilt category for them." Yoruichi blinked in surprise, her brows furrowing slightly. "I don't understand what that means." "You don't need to," he said with a calm, soothing smile. "Go swim with Lisa." Diverting his attention from Yoruichi, he turned towards Mila Rose. "You're calm now." Mila Rose let out a sigh. "I am. I was just surprised that the cat with such a thick, masculine voice is actually a woman. She is like Sun but more unhinged." "True. Era, darling. Are you talking behind my back?" "I am not." He sprawled on Mila Rose's deck chair and let the sunlight wash over him. His vision was graced by the sight of 3 stunning, dark-skinned beauties, each one possessing a figure more alluring than the last. Only he was around to witness the gorgeous sight. "Boys, I found heaven on earth. It's also heaven for lesbians, bisexual, and every weird gender attracted to women." Sun took off her sunglasses and draped them over his eyes. "Have a fun sleep." He cast her a curious glance. She hadn't attacked him yet, which was quite out of character considering her teasing nature. Is she shy about making the first move? Her resurrection is called White Snake Princess in Japanese. I'd say she is playing her part to perfection, being a chaste princess. He pondered on this for a moment. After having her fill of swimming, Yoruichi leisurely swam to the edge of the pool and propped her elbows on the warm pool tiles. The water flowed down her shoulders, creating an enticing image. "Kazuya, I almost forgot why I came here in the first place." "Why is that?" Lisa too emerged from the water, contrasting the dark-skinned Shinigami with her fair complexion. Yoruichi had brought her from the Ishida mansion under some pretense, but there must be more to it than just shopping for swimsuits. "Well," Yoruichi began, injecting a sense of suspense into the air, "it's about time you formally introduce your group to the Visored." Lisa's brows arched upwards. "You can't just bring a bunch of high-level hollows to our base. Kinsei and Hiyori will lose their shit." Yoruichi laughed. "That's the plan. I want to see some shock on their faces. You are fucked in the head." "It's just light fun," Yoruichi said and turned to Kazuya. "Choose a name for your faction. Something catchy like Visored did. I want to hear a mic drop when you say your name." Chapter 79, Ganyandara. Kazuya was a little stumped about choosing a name for his faction, which only consisted of 6 members, 5 ladies and him. He eventually wanted to introduce powerful hollows like Stark, but Mila Rose's prejudice for men hadn't completely vanished. "I can help you with the name. How about 5 Fingers of Doom? We can keep Srirachi as a mascot on the side." Nami's voice echoed in his mind, suggesting names that reeked of her own Chuyuni tendencies. As he narrowed his gaze on the crystal-clear water, a curious thought about her Chuyuni tendencies emerged. She could be the manifestation of a part of him buried deep in his soul. A side that he had never allowed to surface, a suppressed persona birthed from his disciplined upbringing under his grandfather. The Godslayers. The Cosmic Warriors. The Void Kings of Demonic Realm. The Dark Einherjar. She continued spitting out name after audacious name, each more grandiose and Chuyuni than the last, but he didn't nod his head to any. "Keep ignoring me, partner." Letting out a sigh, he turned his attention to Harribel. Her aqua-green eyes stared back at him, as calm as the moonlit sea. "You're the leader of our group," he reminded her in a soft voice. "You should decide the name." The name will stick with us when we move on to rule the Hueco Mundo. He had long since taken over as the voice of the group, mainly due to Harribel's quiet and thoughtful nature. She spent more time in her head than engaging with others. That didn't imply his usurpation of her leadership. At best, he viewed himself as a co-leader, akin to a clan elder supporting the clan leader. There was also the crown-like hollow remnant on her head, which possibly reflected her hidden aspirations to rule the Hueco Mundo as this peaceful and sacrificing queen. He was subtly testing the waters, gauging if such an ambition was harbored within her heart. I was the leader. Now you are, Harribel said in a firm voice, bluntly putting down any doubts anyone had about her current position. As for Hueco Mundo, a subtle shift occurred in her demeanor as she finally moved from her relaxed position. Leaning forward, a crease formed between her brows, a sign that they were delving into serious territory. My dream is about achieving peace and minimizing meaningless deaths in the name of survival and evolution. I believe we can do it. She confidently revealed her vision with everyone. The vision that no longer seemed silly or impossible with Barragan's death and her massive power surge. She glanced at every one of her companions before settling her eyes on him. I want Hueco Mundo and our race to be better. Will you help me? With pleasure, he replied calmly. I just need you to wait for some time. Until then, we can focus on breaking the Las Noches structure and clearing the seeds from the previous monarchy. He supported her wholeheartedly. However, an ominous shadow loomed over her dream. The problem was once again Aizen. The King of Hollows will soon become Aizen's target. Letting her become the ruler of Hollows was foolish in the current year, to say the least. Kill Aizen. All problems solved. Eventually. Aizen in his base state wasn't invincible. Kazuya could overgrow Aizen as long as Aizen didn't achieve his Hogyoku fusion form. A nod from Harribel marked her agreement, her eyes revealing a hint of delight at his foresight about her aspirations. Cunning yet empathetic, there is no more suitable ruler than you. I'll assist you in whichever role possible. There was no protest from the group. They had already embraced the prospect of him being the next king of Hollows the moment he destroyed Barragan. Looking at the crown on her head, he grinned. How about you play the role of my queen? Her lips paused midward before splitting into a broad smile. We'll see. It was the biggest smile he had seen on her face. Alas, he couldn't capture the moment. Sun called for everyone's attention. Harribel-sama has decided to pass the crown to our Kazuya. She is queen and she treats Kazuya like a son, Apache interjected. He should be the crown prince then. The Prince of Hollows. Yoruichi laughed. It has a nice ring to it. Lisa nodded. Sounds like a title from an erotica. Mila Rose raised her hand as if she was in a class. If Harribel-sama is the queen, then what are we? Sun raised a brow. Mistresses? Concubines? King's brides? The princesses of Hollows? Mila Rose winced. Spare me from those fancy titles. I'll just stay as Francesca Mila Rose. Apache didn't confirm nor deny Sun's suggestion, her mind-weaving thoughts one would consider obscene and lewd. Sun clapped her hands. It's the official crowning of our new leader, the new king of Hollows, the Godslayer, and the most handsome darling in the world, Kazuya. Fall on your knees and acknowledge him. That's a lot of ass-licking packed into one sentence, Mila Rose guffawed. Though, I have to admit his face is better than those monstrous hollows. After the room filled with laughter and cheerful jeers, Kazuya steered the conversation back to their original dilemma, the name of their group. Urahara-san said that hollows are poison to Quincy, and Quincy's abilities are deadly against hollows. I'm a perfect specimen of both races. Since I'm the leader, the name should be based on me. Yoruichi frowned. What's it gonna be? The inverse. The inverse, huh? It suits you well, Yoruichi said, a smirk playing on her lips. You're the antithesis of your own existence. I quite like the name. On top of being lazy and playful, Yoruichi was quite a wise woman. one of the reasons for her immense popularity among her fans. Nods and murmurs of agreement resonated throughout the room. Most members hadn't been particularly concerned with their group name, else they would have settled on one already. Boo. Nami wasn't happy about his choice. Oh well, you can't make everyone happy. I'm not anyone. I'm your partner. Partner. We live for each other. We die for each other. We murder the world to protect the other. We are soulmates born of the same soul, she retorted, her tone hinting at an edge of intensity that was borderline obsessive. Her words bore an uncanny resemblance to those of a Yandere. While he wasn't necessarily bothered by Yandere, Nami wielded an enormous amount of power. A Yandere of her level was nightmare fuel. Nami, I promise I'll let you name something else later. Really? You better keep the promise or I'll transform into a kitchen knife and cut your throat. Chapter 80 through 81, Meeting the Visored. The Visored took their training seriously as mastering their hollow masks was an important goal, surpassed only by their burning desire to hold Aizen accountable for his deplorable sins and kicking his ass. The training routine of the Visored typically involved fierce sparring matches between pairs within the confines of a force field created by Hatchin. One such bout was about to unfold at the very moment. A figure of towering stature and a solid physique, crowned with short silver hair, squared off against Hiyori. Her face was hidden behind her hollow mask, which was adorned with a single horn and a series of diamond patterns on her forehead. Her Zanpakuto, transformed into its shuriken form, resembled a cleaver with serrated edges. Hiyori's hollow mask endowed her with a great strength boost, but she struggled to close the inherent gap between a vice-captain and a captain's Ryatsu. Her opponent, Kinsei Magurama, the former captain of the 9th Squad, hadn't even worn his hollow mask. He held his bronze-guarded combat knife, his Zanpakuto in shuriken form. His face was exceedingly calm compared to Hiyori's seething ferocity. I'm coming! With a ground-shattering kick-off, Hiyori charged at Kinsei, her cleaver raised high. He easily countered her vicious strike with his combat knife, parrying her assault. The duel began slowly but soon escalated, the air crackling with tension. Kinsei remained casual, deflecting Hiyori's barrage of vicious strikes, even finding time to strike her defenseless side a couple of times. Every sting of his dagger cut was accompanied by the summoning of a fierce wind blade that inflicted even more injuries on Hiyori. In less than a minute, Hiyori was drenched in her own blood, her hollow mask chipped and battered in several places. Taking deep breaths, she focused on Kinsei, the adrenaline making her somewhat numb to the pain. Kinsei clenched his jaw, admonishing, "You can't extend the timer like that. Stop resting and come at me." "I know, jerk." "Ha! Take a load of this blade." She pushed through the pain, which was the key to increasing the duration of her hollowification. The longer they could maintain their hollow masks, the more feasible it would be to turn the tide against stronger opponents. The fight continued for 2 minutes before Hiyori's hollow mask dissolved on its own. Like always, Kinsei avoided any direct hit from Hiyori. Overlooking the training area from a raised balcony, Shinji watched the duel with an air of detached interest, his hands nonchalantly tucked into his pockets. But beneath the mask of indifference, he was sharply aware of every movement, every exchange of blows. He understood the pain Hiyori was pushing through, and it stirred a mixture of admiration and concern within him. Abruptly, his gaze shifted to the underground training chamber's exit. Lisa is back with Yoruichi-san, and someone else. Kisuke, who had been observing the Visored's growth, licked his lips. "Let's meet them, shall we?" Shinji narrowed his eyes, sensing that Kisuke was cooking something. The self-proclaimed handsome merchant rarely ventured to their underground chamber, a place he had constructed in the first place. Today he just showed up under the guise of observing their training and gaining some enlightenment. As if Shinji would believe those words. Shinji waved his hand. "I'll be back in a jiff." As he emerged from the underground chamber, his eyes instantly fell upon an unexpected sight. Standing within the dimly lit warehouse was a man with silver hair flowing down his shoulders like a mane. His true nature could easily be discernible by 2 white horns on the sides of his head and the red gem on his forehead. He was an Arrancar, no doubt, who had torn off his mask and concealed his Ryatsu with a Gigai. But what caught Shinji's attention was the familiarity of the Arrancar's Ryatsu. The Arrancar we were worried about. Why does he look like those demon kings from Love Shounen manga? Shinji swiveled towards Kasuke, his gaze sharp as a blade. You know him. Kasuke placed a reassuring hand on Shinji's shoulder. He might be Arrancar, but he is a friend. You'll find Kazuya particularly interesting. The man who claimed he served Aizen must also be familiar with Aizen's former captain, Shinji Hirako. Kasuke couldn't wait to see the authenticity of Kazuya's claim. I ain't familiar with the name Kazuya. Yoruichi and Lisa walked into the warehouse, positioning themselves on either side of Kazuya. Yo, Shinji, Yoruichi said as she raised her hand in greeting, still in her swimsuit. Meet our new friend, the leader of the Inverse. Kazuya looked up as well, smiling. Nice to meet you, Shinji. Let's sit somewhere appropriate, shall we? Kazuya's soothing voice made Shinji question if he was into women or men. Minutes later, Shinji, Kasuke, Yoruichi, and Kazuya were huddled around a table. The warm flicker of the artificial sun, the Keto spell, bathed their faces in a subtle glow. Shinji was frowning, deep in thought. Kasuke fanned himself with an air of amused detachment. Yoruichi was leaning back in her chair, her gaze sharp and appraising. The Visored scrutinized them from a distance, their curiosity piqued, except for Lisa. She stood behind Kazuya, eager to know the secret he was so keen on concealing. He sat relaxed like Yoruichi, one elbow resting on the table. His eyes held a gleam of cunning as they flicked towards Kasuke, his smile playing around the edges of his mouth. Kasuke had brought him here to test him against Shinji Hirako. And he had come prepared. He wasn't going to let his lies fall apart so easily. Dealing with Shinji was a breeze of air compared to dealing with Kasuke. This guy is the Vasto Lord we were discussing, right? Shinji cut to the chase with a direct question. Where's the other Arrancar? At my home, he said with a faint smile. I didn't bring everyone here to give you guys a scare. Kasuke, why do you want my group to be familiar with the Visored? As far as I know, we have nothing in common. The Visored were unlikely to offer any assistance in his mission involving the Soul Society unless Kasuke intended for them to forge friendships through conversation. The chances of that happening were 1 in a million. Shinji nodded at the question. Yeah. Why introduce us? Kasuke, who was busy waiting his fan, smiled. There is one thing in common. You both got done in when Aizen used you as a test subject. You see, Kazuya here used to be a seated officer in your squad before he was used by Aizen for the hollowification experiment. Huh? He reincarnated as a hollow then became a Vasto Lord in, what, 100 years? That's some impressive growth. Kazuya shrugged. You guys escaped with your lives. I straight up got decimated from the inside. Lisa, standing close behind, softened her gaze at his admission. His reincarnation and Shinigami background were revelations she could never have imagined. His affiliations with Kasuke and Yoruichi began to make sense. It's not like that, Kazuya. You died with honor. We ran away. He stretched his behind, beckoning her. She complied without a word, bridging the gap to stand beside him, an act that didn't go unnoticed by Shinji and the rest of her friends. I know you Shinigami are high on honor and stuff. Try living as a hollow in Hueco Mundo. You'll forget everything about honor when you have to constantly hide and flee from every living being. Everyone in that world would happily kill you and chew on your bones for a sliver of chance of evolution. It's every man for himself there, survival of the fittest, a literal fuckfest. Lisa nodded in understanding. Survival is important, but it takes a back seat when you have experienced centuries. Honor keeps our conscience in check, never letting us stray far from our mission. I don't know how that feels, yet, he said with a soft smile. Lisa, ask me the same question in 100 years. I might have a different answer then. A ripple of surprise washed over Lisa. His words implied they would still be in touch after a century, as friends or something else. Her mind wandered to questionable territory until she heard Yoruichi's playful tapping on the table. Yoruichi let out a theatrical yawn, drawing all eyes to her. She lazily stretched, a cat-like grin spreading across her face. "I'm with Kazuya. I'll go with whatever my heart thinks is the right action. Honor and traditions are way too shackling for a small person like me." Shinji chuckled. "Cats are easily bored. Why don't you play with a ball of wool in the corner?" Yoruichi gave an unamused smile. "You got a shit face and a shit sense of humor." Shinji got a critical hit from her surprise attack. Coughing, he turned to Kazuya, quickly attempting to steer the conversation elsewhere. "What was your name, again? I'm sure you weren't Kazuya back then." Given the limited number of seated officers in any squad, it was feasible for a captain or vice-captain to recall each one's name. Kazuya shook his head. "I have yet to remember my name. I guess the important memories are coming back first. It's sad to say that Aizen's betrayal left a deeper scar on my soul than my own life." Reincarnation was an intricate subject even in the Soul Society. Nobody was completely sure about anything except the fact that the dead souls moved to one of the three realms with each death. The balance was continuously maintained with Shinigami's casual duties, unless an influx of souls suddenly vanished from one realm. Yoruichi chimed in with a nod. It's already impressive that he remembered something in the first place. The cycle of reincarnation leaves no traces of memories. If I had to guess, the hollowification experiment must have done something to his consciousness. Kisuke had a different reason for Kazuya keeping his memories, but he didn't bring it up before anyone. The existence of Soul King was concealed even from Yoruichi. The less people knew about the anchor, the better it was for the Soul Society's stability. "Let's forget about that," Shinji said with a casual shrug. "I want to know why you're so close with Lisa." Kazuya revealed a grin. "The poor girl has a bit of a crush on me." An ice-cold blade made its way to his neck. Lisa glared at him with the level of animosity one saved for their nastiest enemies. "What were you saying?" His grin didn't falter a bit as gripped the tip of her katana and nudged it away from his neck. "You were dying to go on a date with me, remember?" She almost blushed at the reminder of her previous embarrassment and the way he left her stranding. "You asked me out first, then you went back on your own proposal." She made excuses to save some face before her friends. Shinji hung his head in a feigned defeat. "I also proposed to you before, but you rejected me." Kazuya raised a brow. "You say that to every woman you come across." Hiyori yelled, "He never said that to me." Kazuya cheerfully waved to Hiyori. "Let me correct my words. He says that to every beautiful woman." Hiyori stared at him with an open mouth like a certain yellow rat. She could hardly focus her thoughts when subjected to the power of his voice. Shinji, on the other hand, burst into laughter, his cackles resounding throughout the underground chamber. "Good one, mate." Rojuro Odoribashi, the former captain of the third squad, let out a whistle. He was a blonde with an unusually sharp chin, wearing what seemed like a black suit with frilly cuffs. "Someone bring ice from the fridge and treat that burn. Hiyori needs it." Hiyori clenched her fists. "I'm gonna kill you for that." She drew her katana and launched herself at Kazuya. With a casual flick of his finger, he sent a blue ball of Ryatsu, a Zero Ray, sailing over Shinji's head and straight towards Hiyori. She halted mid-charge, adopting a defensive stance as her hollow mask manifested, augmenting her power. An intense explosion swallowed Hiyori. When the smoke cleared, she emerged unscathed, save for her tracksuit that was now ragged and torn in several places. Kazuya smiled softly. "I'm glad you are not hurt." Hiyori's scowl deepened. "Don't give me that crap. I'm exhausted or you'd be dead right now." "Humph." She flew away from the scene as though admitting her hot-headedness was too much for her. Yoruichi watched the events unfold with interest. The small skirmish with Hiyori didn't take away the fact everything went smoothly. The Visored not rushing at Kazuya to avenge Hiyori was a big testament of their trust in Shinji. Kazuya shrugged. Say sorry to her for me later, Shinji. She rarely accepts defeat like this, Shinji said with an unamused face. A small Zero almost defeated her. You outclass her, man. I doubt any one of us could go one-on-one with you. Lisa's brows raised in surprise. Seriously, Shinji? He was their strongest member as far as she knew. Kazuya turned out to be even stronger than she had expected. Shinji nodded. I'm sensitive to Ryatsu. His surpasses mine by a big margin. I partially awakened my Zanpakuto at Kasuke's house. Yoruchi chuckled. You're at this level of strength at partial resurrection. What kind of monster will you become at your strength? Capable of defeating Aizen, I hope. He shrugged. That guy is a true monster. Shinji here knows that, right? Shinji leaned against his chair and threw his back. I knew he was suspicious when I first saw him. I kept him at my side all the time. Little did I know, I was being fooled so hard by his illusion. That fucker's smile makes my blood boil. Don't worry. I'm gonna put an end to his tomfoolery. Ha! What are you gonna do to Aizen? Kasuke decided to answer on Kazuya's behalf. Shinji-san, Kazuya-san is going to the Soul Society to expose Aizen's crimes. The tension suddenly rose at the mention of his master plan. Just one of his plans which he was hoping would work out. Huh? Shinji stared at Kazuya. Couldn't you find? His words got stuck in his throat when Kazuya's horns disappeared, revealing his Quincy form. You were saying something? What the fuck? Shinji's shocked voice resonated through the underground chamber. The visored, previously standing at a distance, rushed towards Kazuya, forming a curious circle around him. Yoruchi laughed. These were the types of reactions she lived for. The same type of reaction people gave her when she went from a male cat to a sexy woman. Her amusement was amplified by the expression Kazuya was making. It seemed like he was a cute alien surrounded by a bunch of earthlings trying to understand him but to no avail. Hang in there, buddy. Help is not on the way, she teased. Definitely not. Fuck off, he said and pushed everyone with his hands. Stop acting like children. Switching between Quincy and Hollow is my innate ability. Don't call Mashiro a child, exclaimed a young woman clad in a bodysuit that looked like it was straight out of a Japanese superhero TV show. Mashiro is a grown-up. Only a kid refers to themselves in third person, girl. Kinsei chuckled. Paused before cracking his knuckles. She refuses to be normal. Mashiro shot Kinsei a childish grimace, pulling her eyelid down and sticking her tongue out. Kinsei, you grouch. You big jerk. Kinsei paused before cracking his knuckles. I'm gonna kick your ass. A playful scuffle broke out between the former captain and vice-captain of the 9th Squad, a tradition that had been carried on from their time in the Soul Society to the world of the living. Kazuya looked at Shinji. Are you guys sure you don't need a therapist? I can refer you to one on my contacts list. Love Aikawa, the tall visored with a black spiked afro, scratched his cheek thoughtfully. You should know how souls are. You develop all types of eccentricity when you live for as long as us. That's true. Kazuya agreed with a nod. It doesn't mean a little therapy here and there won't improve your mood. Lisa rolled her eyes. Look at this Hollow giving us life tips. Go back to Hueco Mundo and devour your own race. I'm not some random Hollow, he said as he crossed his arms, his expression serious. You're talking to the Prince of Hollows. The future king of Arrancars. If you're the future king of Arrancars, then I'm queen of Shinigami. Are we perfect male and female leads for a romance novel? I prefer erotica, but sure. Male and female leads with our backgrounds would sell as hot as Romeo and Juliet. Shinji watched, speechless. You too. Just marry already. Kazuya extended his hand to Lisa. Let's go to church. In your dreams. Chapter 82, Apprehensions. At Kazuya's mansion. Surachi emerged from the building and shielded her eyes from the dazzling sunlight. Around the glistening pool, Apache, Harribel, and Sun sprawled across chairs, their bodies still as statues basking in the sun. On the other side, Mila Rose splashed clumsily through the pool like an eager child. She was in the middle of learning how to swim, a challenge that went against her nature as a lioness. From Surachi's perspective, all four women relaxed and enjoyed the lovely afternoon. "Rose, where is Kazuya?" Mila Rose poked her head out of the water. "He went to meet the Visored. It's the group Lisa is a part of." "Alone?" "He insisted on going alone." Surachi rubbed the back of her head. "One of you should have gone with him. He is our leader, for fuck's sake. What type of impression will it leave on the other party?" At that, Harribel stirred, removing her sunglasses. Sparks flew as they stared at each other, unyielding spirits fighting an imperceptible battle. "He insisted on going alone," Harribel repeated Mila Rose's words in a steady, deliberate voice. "He didn't want to scare them with a group of Arrancars wielding fearsome powers. Try to understand the Visored's perspective. A group of powerful Arrancars hiding in the same town as them." "I get it." Surachi's sigh was audible, a mix of realization and resignation. She approached the pool, sitting at the edge and dipping her feet into the water, creating ripples that disturbed its tranquility. "When is he leaving?" "Someone seems to be terribly lonely without our leader," Sun said with a chuckle. "We don't know yet. In a week or two, I'd assume." A thoughtful expression cast a shadow over Surachi's features. Her anticipation for Kazuya's remedy of her broken Zanpakuto surpassed her initial expectations. After all, her Zanpakuto was the very reason she was rotting in the underground chamber while everyone else was having the tour of their lives. Left to her thoughts, she unknowingly sank deeper and deeper into the abyss of despair. A hand rose from the pool and yanked her into the pool, disrupting her contemplation. She emerged, dripping wet, her wings heavy and sodden. "Ha ha ha." Mila Rose's laughter echoed through the air, wild and unhinged, as if she was a maniac villain who had just cracked the code to end the world. "Stop being a sad bird. Chirp and open your wings like a happy bird." Surachi glared at her for a few moments before she climbed out of the pool. "Don't bother me. I'm not in the mood." Mila Rose's smile faltered, replaced by a concerned frown at her friend's dejected response. "Cheer up, let me tell you what happened today." As Mila Rose related the conversation between Kazuya and Harribel about Hueco Mundo's future, surprise flickered across Surachi's face. He actually took responsibility for killing Baradin. She took him for a leader, but never the type to step up as a king after Baradin's death. The fact that he cared about the future of the Hollow race made her hopeful for the future of Hueco Mundo. "I'm still not leading this place for Hueco Mundo." She looked at Harribel in a new light. "I'm all for Kazuya being a king and Harribel being the queen." Harribel responded with a firm, "Thank you," gesturing for Apache and Sun to sit up. "After Kazuya leaves, I'll go to Las Noches and talk to Baradin's retainers. I'll try the peaceful method." The idea of sitting on a throne, dictating terms, didn't align with her nature. Yet, for the sake of peace, for fewer sacrifices, she accepted this formidable role with an unwavering resolve. Leadership was not an exciting prospect, but a necessary compromise. Mila Rose froze in surprise. Apache and Surachi weren't any different. Only Sun showed a look of mild surprise, clearly not expecting Harribel to take action so fast. Harribel's proposal clashed with the personal agendas they had for Hueco Mundo after Kazuya's leave. Observing the silence, Harribel arched an eyebrow. "I take it you all had different plans." "It's fine. I can manage alone." While not optimal, she had no qualms against storming the Las Noches on her own. She was confident in her Resurrección being able to handle any number of hollows. After all, the strongest hollow, by her observation, had been dealt with by Kazuya already. Mila Rose turned to Sun and Apache. "Wait, what are you two cooking?" Sun narrowed her eyes. Apache and I have plans to further explore the forest of Minos. That underground location? Surachi and I were going to visit Las Noches. A horrible scientist/espada named Sale lives there, performing inhumane experiments on hollows and other races. I was going to kill him. Surachi nodded in tune with Mila Rose. Yeah. Harribel-sama, could we? Mila Rose faltered, her voice barely above a whisper. Can you delay your plan by a couple of weeks? Yeah, please, Sun chimed in for Apaches. We need some weeks at most. Harribel's mind was swayed by their sincere requests. Fine, take care of your business after Kazuya leaves. Until then, you all will spend as much time with him as you can. Consider it done, Sun said with a teasing smile. Harribel-sama, we're grateful to have a lovable mommy like you. Caught off guard by Sun's sudden shift in tone, Harribel could only stare, taken aback. I'm not anyone's mommy, stop talking nonsense. Getting up, she manifested her spiritual clothes and left the pool. I'm gonna be in the town. Being identical to humans in her base Arrancar form, she could go out anytime without needing a disguise. A Gigai was all she needed to blend in with the humans. I'll convey that to Kazuya. Apache and Mila Rose exchanged bewildered looks, their gazes returning to Sun, pondering where she found the courage to tease Harribel of all people. A few minutes later, Sun slapped Apache's thigh. Wake up. I'm awake, bitch. What? Remember the favor you owe me? A shiver of dread danced along Apache's spine. She could feel a troublesome request coming her way. A very troublesome one. Oh, that? What do you want? I know you've been sleeping with Kazuya lately, going at it all night like rabbits in heat. Heat rushed to Apache's face, her fierce demeanor dissolving into a flustered mess. What are you talking about? I'm sleeping in my room. Just sleeping. Mila Rose casually kicked Apache's shin. When did you make your move on him? It was no secret amongst the three women how thirsty Apache was for Kazuya. It was only a matter of time before she made her move, although they hadn't expected it to happen so soon after her Arrancarification. I did not. Apache refused to admit anything about her intimacy in front of them. You guys are delusional as fuck. Stop bullshitting, Sun said in a sharp voice. Open up your ears and listen. Tonight, you will. Mila Rose and Surachi exchanged stunned glances as they listened to Sun's devious plan that heavily involved Kazuya. She pointed an accusatory finger at Sun. That's going too far, snake. Shut up, coward Rose. I'm not gonna deny my womanhood for some random excuse. The words pierced Mila Rose's chest. I'm not making excuses. Don't come crying to me when he loses interest in you. The Siriidii is as big as the living world. He will find plenty of women there. Women who he used to work with and admire. I'll do everything I can to make sure he has a reason to come back. Hell, he might get together with Yoruchi and make a noble family there. Her words served as a harsh reminder of Kazuya's background as a Shinigami and how easily he could be swayed to leave their side. Even though they trusted him with their hearts, there was still a lingering concern that he would leave them forever. To her surprise, Mila Rose threw her head back and laughed like a maniac. Fuck off. He is Skull. My Skull. I'm gonna storm the gates of Soul Society to bring him back here if I need to. Oh, you care so much about me? Of course I do, you dummy. He is a precious friend and a potential mate. I'm flattered. Mila Rose paused, her head slowly moving to where the voice came from. She came face to face with a grinning Kazuya, her expression frozen in time as if he was the embodiment of her nightmares. Surachi burst into laughter. How can someone be so clueless and cute? Mila Rose is a natural, Sun said. How did things go with the Visored? Good. I'm gonna train with them starting tomorrow. That's good, but will you be spending less time with us? Nope, because we'll all be training there. Wow! Mila Rose exclaimed. I'm gonna beat them to pulp and show them the powers of a true Arrancar. I'd love to see you try. He settled by Surachi's side and laid his head on her wet thighs, feeling a surprising amount of plush beneath his head. Will you join us, Surachi? Surachi didn't reject his initiative, leaning back with a sigh. Training won't help me in my current form. It's fine. I just want you to be there as a part of our group. By the way, our group has a name now. The Inverse. El Inverso. Kazuya had already approached Kasuke for a solution for Surachi's Zanpakuto after his meeting with Vizard. The shady shopkeeper had agreed to help but made no promises. It's not bad, she said with a slow nod and looked down at him. Kazuya, I support your decision to become the king. Skip chapter 83 through 85 because it was too lewd. Chapter 86, Unusual Relationship. Kazuya had a refreshing bath with Sun first thing in the morning. Mila Rose, Apache, Harribel, and Surachi were already there, nestled around the table in the dining room. Each reacted differently as Sun walked into the dining room with him, her arm twined possessively around his arm. A scornful sneer twisted Mila Rose's lips as her gaze hardened with clear disdain. Apache, on the other hand, attempted to cloak her emotions behind a mask of aloofness. But the subtle twitch of her fingers and a faint furrow of her brows betrayed the jealousy brewing beneath her cool facade. Harribel was visibly tight-lipped, her face creased with a barely perceptible frown of judgment. Surachi, however, appeared utterly indifferent, seemingly uninterested in his love life. Husband, let me serve you breakfast, Sun purred, drawing out his chair and bringing the packed dishes to serve him. Here! I made you delicious food. Mila Rose made a disgusted face as if she couldn't bear to watch Sun's housewife act. Apache, will you do me the favor of smacking this bitch in the head? She has clearly lost it. Mila Rose was the type to poke fun at anyone, anytime, anywhere with her unparalleled inability to read the room. She'd have been the type of person who made jokes at someone's funeral. Apache shook her head. Let her act, she was moaning all night. Cyan Sun stifled a yawn, the corners of her lips curving up. Husband and I had a fancy night. I'm tired. Oi, skull and snake, Mila Rose yelled. Can't you two fuck in moderation? You guys were so damn loud yesterday. I'd have kicked your asses if Surachi didn't stop me. Kazuya had forgotten to put on the force field that suppressed noise to an extent. Mila Rose's complaint reminded him of a crucial flaw in the mansion. Even though their bedrooms were so far apart, their superhuman senses could easily pick on the noises coming from another floor. Wait, Kazuya said. Mila Rose sleeps with Surachi? Don't you two have separate bedrooms? What's wrong with sleeping in Surachi's room? Her wings are so damn comfortable pillows. Oh! His suspicions of their relationship tickled his mind, unsettling him. If they were to take a romantic turn, he didn't know how he'd handle it. Surachi, you gotta let me try your pillow wings. Surachi rolled her eyes. Be happy I let you borrow my lap. Don't push the boundaries, leader. Sleeping with him was different from sharing a bed with a friend. Both of them were aware of it. Oh. He turned to Apache. Oh, Apache. I think your Resurrection form gives you fur on your body. I'm not using my Resurrection for you to use me as a body pillow. Come on. Listen to your lover's last request. Her resistance crumbled like a castle of sand under a wave. Fine, she admitted with a sigh. Only tonight. Thanks, Apache. She was trying not to show any happiness at his request, but he could see through her facade. She was pleased that she was desired by him. Sun tugged at his sleeve. Can I join you tonight, husband? No! Apache rejected Sun with a red face. Sleep in your room. Miser, Sun said with a cute pout. Selfish, little miser dear. The tension dissolved as he focused back on his breakfast, the sound of his lover's bickering fading into the background. Once he finished his breakfast, he extended a hand towards Harribel, who was still seated, observing him with a soft smile. Come with me, Harribel. She flinched as her smile vanished. Her shoulders slumped slightly, a hint of resignation clouding her features. She knew the reason behind his request. Turning to Mila Rose and Surachi, she revealed a stern frown. Don't try anything weird in my absence. I won't. He chuckled at her mother-like warnings to the group. Let's go. Minutes later, Harribel could be seen sitting on a bed while Kazuya leaned against the window of his room. Harribel looked at him. Kazuya. His lips curved into a reassuring smile. I want to talk about you. More accurately, I want to know about your inclination to treat me and others around me like your child. She hesitated, her eyes wavering with a tinge of guilt. I don't know. It's just my instinct to look after younger people. You're the only one I may have treated like my child. The confession weighed on her. She'd been fighting this battle within herself, knowing it was wrong to impose such a role without his consent, yet unable to resist. Acting like his mother provided her relief on deeper levels. Don't make that face, he whispered, approaching her and laying his head on her soft thighs. I'd have said no if I didn't enjoy your care. I'm just conflicted. Conflicted about your feelings for me? She asked softly. Do you remember the favor I was going to ask in Hueco Mundo? What was that about? She leaned in, so close that he could see his reflection in her aqua green eyes. I wanted you to accept Mila Rose as your lover. And for us to remain the same. With me as your mother. Her confession hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her suppressed feelings. She had wished to maintain their existing dynamics, to continue cherishing him like a child. But Apache getting attacked by Jillian had stopped her from asking the favor that may have changed their relationship forever. I see, he said, a soft sigh escaping his lips. What changed your mind? You openly showed interest in me after you became an Arrancar. I couldn't bring myself to ask the favor again. He reached out and touched her face, tracing her soft skin. It's fine. You can continue pampering me as long as you want. But she withdrew from his touch, her eyes shutting tight. A shake of her head followed her retreat. I won't take things for granted anymore. Then how about you take up both roles? Act as my mother and my lover. The words felt weird in his mind and sounded weirder in reality. He shut his eyes, trying to escape the awkwardness, only to feel a surprising softness against his lips. His eyes snapped open, meeting the sight of Harribel kissing him, her eyes sealed shut in concentration. It was a simple press of lips, but the emotional magnitude of sharing it with Harribel was enough to make his heart pound wildly. After a lingering moment, she pulled back, her breath mixing with his. It's decided then. I'll cherish you like my child, and also love you, as your woman. He could tell she wasn't immune to the oddness of their situation. The slight hesitation in her voice hinted at the embarrassment she felt about the unusual relationship he had proposed, their current relationship. Say something, she grumbled. You're making it awkward. Instead of answering her request, he burst out laughing. It's refreshing to see Tears' cute side. A playful ruffle through his hair was her retort, but her touch soon softened, her fingertips caressing his scalp with an affectionate ease. Receiving lap pillows in Harribel's Vasto Lord form was a blissful expression, but receiving lap pillows in her Arrancar form was a completely different experience. It was an entirely different level of comfort and intimacy. It was akin to being spoiled by royalty, which they both were going to become at some point. Hey, partner. Mommy Harribel is temporary and our bond is eternal, forever and ever. Chapter 87, The Balance. For the next 2 weeks, Kazuya continuously trained with the Visored, refining every ability at his disposal, from the basic Zero to the most devastating ability at his disposal, Oppression. His Iero armor hardened, absorbing lethal attacks from Mila Rose with ease. His Sonido soared to new heights with constant battles against the well-oiled battle machines like Visored. He hadn't been the only one who reaped rewards from this training. The influence of his crumbling heart ability benefited all hollow allies, including the Visored. Just in 15 days, the hollows inside the visor had a visible growth in strength. Yet, they would never awaken a resurrection like Kanin Tozen, for their perception of their hollow selves was skewed. They clung to their hollow masks as one would a weapon, failing to comprehend that the hollow entity residing within them was part of their very being. They needed to accept this hollow identity, embrace it rather than viewing it as an external object. In contrast to the leaps and bounds Kazuya was making in his training, his personal life was marked with a significant issue. Izumi Ishida, the woman he held in regard as his own flesh and blood sister. He hadn't yet conveyed his imminent departure, which was due to take place in a matter of hours. Spinning stories was an easy task, yet no scenario existed where Izumi would take his departure lightly. Regardless of the web of lies he spun, tears would inevitably follow. And revealing the true nature of his hollow lineage would lead to a heartbreaking confrontation. He was in a sticky situation with no happy ending. Bah! Pay for thy cruel lies, sinner! Nami, shut up. Partner, there is a happy ending for her. Huh? Kill her. Wipe her from the face of the earth. There will be no more tears or sadness. She'll live happily after she is taken to the poverty lands of the Soul Society. Wait, she will be tortured by Kuratsuchi Mayuri for being a pure-blooded Quincy. Fuck you. You don't need her in your life. I'll be your Winnie-chan, Otudo-kun. You can also call me Oka-san or simply Mommy Phoenixta. With each passing day, his Zanpakuto spirit seemed to grow more and more detached from reality, turning into a bloodthirsty Yandere. She might need professional therapy at this rate. I'm just gonna repeat what I said to Apache. Come to me when you get a human body. I don't bone animals or birds. Humph, how uncultured of you. Our bond transcends the barriers of physical intimacy. Our love is spiritual, partner. Otudo-kun called out the black-haired woman sitting across from him at a cafe seat. You're sleeping with your eyes open. Have you not been resting properly? His heart clenched at the thought of seeing tears glistening in her gentle eyes. She had been nothing but sweet towards him. I'm fine, Winnie-chan. Is there any news about Ishida-san? When is he returning? Izumi's face clouded over at the mention of her husband. I don't know, neither do I care about our marriage at this point. Huh? Are you unhappy with your marriage? He could understand her frustration, but to lose all care for her marriage seemed too drastic. They had been married for like 3 or 4 months. This marriage, she said, letting her words drift off into a melancholic sigh. Let's just pretend I never said anything. You can talk to me, Winnie-chan. Maybe I can help with your problems. There are no problems, Izumi said, shaking her head softly. Our marriage was based around creating a lineage of Quincy. Making a family that Quincy can rely upon in times of trouble. So, it was a political marriage. In essence, yes. I don't need it anymore. The shift in her perception could be traced back to a single person, himself. He had morphed into a beacon of hope for the Quincy race in her eyes, an illusion formed from her fantasies. She was unaware that the future of Quincy race was all but bleak with Yalwacha's sinister plans to destroy the world by merging all 3 realms. Lisa's sharp glare bore into him. Kazuya, you mentioned earlier that you had something important to share with Izumi-sama. About that. He rubbed the back of his head, realizing Lisa's attempt to make him omit the truth. Winnie-chan, I'm leaving Karakura town for a vacation. A long vacation. Leaving the town? Where are you going and when will you return? About a year. As for my destination, I'd like to keep it a secret. Izumi drew a sharp breath. Otudo-kun, you are joking. Tell me it's a strange joke you learned from Lisa. She was in denial. His recent absences, while bewildering, were manageable, but a vacation lasting an entire year was beyond her capacity to cope with. His constant presence at her home had become a comforting norm, and the prospect of his absence was akin to a serrated blade cleaving her heart in two. He shook his head. I'm not joking, Winnie-chan. Look on the bright side. You have one less mouth to feed. His feeble attempt at humor backfired. As Izumi clutched his sleeve, her eyes brimmed with unshed tears. The cafe patrons began to cast accusatory glances his way for making her cry. Wani-chan. Izumi abruptly pulled her hand back and sniffed, choking back her tears. I'm sorry, Otuo-kun, for being a clingy sister. You're free to leave anytime. I won't stop you. She got up and dashed towards the exit at a superhuman speed. Her leg injury had fully healed. As he tried to chase after her, Lisa grabbed his hand. Lisa. It's fine, Kazuya, she offered, her voice soothing as she pulled him back to sit beside her. Running after her now will only complicate things for both of you. You have to leave soon. Fuck, he cursed under his breath. Lisa, take care of her. You can bet on that, she said with a serious face. You take care of yourself on the mission. If you die, I'll expose your stash of incestual older sister Arrow novels and magazines to Izumi-sama. Those are yours, Lisa. Those are all yours, he retorted, a chuckle escaping his lips. If I take down Aizen, we'll have a one-night stand, got it? In your dreams. The Gotai 13 was an establishment birthed from the vision of a single man, Genryusai Shigakuni Yamamoto, who currently bore the title of the Captain Commander of the Gotai 13. He led a group of ruthless killers and formed an organization that imposed law and order with brute force. Then a certain massacre brought forth a transformation in their regulations. In the new era, the Gotai 13 was entrusted with stern responsibilities such as the safeguarding of the Siriidii, the heart of the Soul Society, the mobilization of squad members for combat operations on enemy territories, the allocation of forces to defense measures in the living world, and the guidance of souls to the Soul Society. All these undertakings were geared towards their core aim of maintaining the balance. To visualize this balance through data, Senjumaru Shut-Era, one of the esteemed royal guards, had conceived the Shut-Era scale. The surveillance of the Shut-Era scale was now within the jurisdiction of the 12th Squad, which had a direct link to the Shinigami Research and Development Institute. Currently in the headquarters of the 12th Squad. On the highest level of the headquarters stood a tall man with short, spiky black hair, a prominent hairline bisecting his scalp. 3 small horns adorned his forehead, and the absence of eyebrows made him a very impressionable Shinigami. Akon, the third seat of the 12th Squad, oversaw the division as they worked fervently before expansive screens. The captain of the 12th Squad, Mayuri Kuratsuchi, held absolute authority over his department. If one dares to utter an opinion, they could very well be reconstructed into a human bomb by the captain. The secret to longevity here is working quietly and fulfilling all duties, never drawing attention to yourself. As for 12th Squad's duties, they developed innovative technology and spiritual devices. They also measured spiritual waves for the calibration of the Shut-Era scale and managed communications between different squads. Akon nodded in satisfaction and shifted to the blond man approaching him, carrying with him stacks of reports. Akon-san, we have a report from the correction squad to the captain. You can relay it to me. I'll pass it on to our captain. The correction squad have wiped out 15,000 souls in Rukongai. The Shut-Era scale is back to Category 1 from Category 3. Unflinchingly, Akon nodded his understanding at the grim news of 15,000 innocent souls from Rukongai being eradicated. The order had been issued by the captain, then approved by the captain commander. It was not his place to question it nor feel pity for the souls who'd eventually reincarnate. You can leave. Once his underling had left, Akon gathered the reports from his desk. A few weeks ago, nearly 70,000 souls had mysteriously vanished from Hueco Mundo, causing a disturbance that had not been witnessed since the Quincy rampage. Nobody in the Gotai 13 realized that this disruption was caused by the death of a single Vasto Lord, Barragan Lazenbairn. Chapter 88, Dangai. Within the next hour, Kazuya found himself back in Kasuke's well-lit underground chamber, facing Kasuke with Yoruichi on his side. Kasuke raised the tip of his hat. Ready to take a step back in time and explore your dark past? What I mean is... Without awaiting a reply, Kasuke whipped out a ludicrously large megaphone from the depths of his robe and roared into it, "Are you ready?" Kazuya snatched the megaphone and tossed it aside. "Just bring out the Senkaman." "Aye aye, Captain." Kasuke complied, a quick snap of his fingers breaking the very fabric of reality, revealing 4 eerily rifts. Huge blocks of weathered gray stone emerged from each rift and formed a hollow rectangular block. The entire block looked as if it was put together by gluing a bunch of paper. The Senkaman, the Tunnel World Gate. You might already know this, but let me refresh your memories on the dangers of entering a Senkaman. Huh? Apache's voice echoed, a note of confusion tinging her tone. I thought Senkaman is Shinigami's version of Garganta, and safe to transverse. It is relatively simple if you have Jigakucho, but us expelled Shinigami don't have access to them. Kazuya-san and Yoruchi-san need to take the much more difficult route. Explain why it's hard, Apache urged. The Senkaman will close in 4 minutes. If you don't reach the Soul Society in 4 minutes, you will be trapped in the Dangai, the precipice realm between the living world and the Soul Society, forever. As the words seeped in, Apache reached out, her fingers desperately clutching the fabric of Kazuya's shirt. Kazuya can fly. 4 minutes should be enough for him. The travel in Dangai, Yoruchi said, looking at Kazuya with a soul-piercing gaze. It isn't dictated by speed but willpower. The will to go forward is our guide. Have no doubt. Have no fear. Do not stop. Do not look back. Do not think of those you are leaving behind. Just go forward. She was obviously addressing his relationship with his lovers, which might become a problem within the realm of Dangai. If his heart lingered in the living world, he might not make it out of the Dangai. Shihoin-san, he said with a confident voice. I can handle the willpower part. I'm more worried about the currents that flow in the Dangai. Koryu? We need to avoid it at any cost. Once you're stuck in its grasp, crossing to the Soul Society in time will become impossible. Harribel clenched her fists. That's absurd. Why can't he go through Garganta? With a shake of his head, Kasuke explained, the SRDI are monitoring the hollow activities all day all year. They will be alerted as soon as Garganta opens. We can't take that risk. This Senkaman is our only choice in giving him entry to the Soul Society. Compared to the reality-bending distortions caused by Garganta, the subtler ripples of Senkaman often flew under the investigative radar. Harribel bit her lip, anger flashing in her eyes. Why does he? Relax, Tyr, intertwining his fingers with hers and applying a gentle, comforting pressure. She was openly showing concern about him, which warmed his heart. Shihoin-san will be there with me. There is no obstacle in this world we can't pass together. Even Barragan got destroyed, remember? Yoruchi nodded with a chuckle. It's a walk in the park for Shinigami with our resolve. What they said, Kasuke added, lazily waving a fan in front of his face. I have prototype communication devices to exchange words between us and the Soul Society. We'll know when he makes it to the other side. Mila Rose gave Harribel's shoulder an encouraging pat. Harribel-sama, Skull is a bit perverted but he always lives up to his promise. Let's trust him. Sun wrapped her arms around Harribel from the side. Husband is a god. Nothing can harm him. That's going too far, Apache retorted, though a smile played on her lips. I guess it's true in a sense. He is the king of hollows for a reason. Everyone except Surachi came together to reassure the worried mother of the inverse, who showed genuine compassion and affection for Kazuya. Their collective encouragement had a splendid effect, lifting her spirits. Kazuya took his turn embracing each of them, his lips sneaking in a quick, affectionate kiss. There were no complaints or rejections when faced with the idea of living without him for a month at the very least. Witnessing the sweet relationship between Kazuya and his companions stirred a pang of guilt in both Kasuke and Yoruchi. They recognized the importance of stopping Aizen and maintaining the balance, but the emotional toll felt burdensome nonetheless. After warm farewells, he stepped into the Senkaman, followed by Yoruchi. His physical body remained behind, entrusted to the loving care of his lovers. It was actually of no importance since he could create a new physical body every time he changed from soul to human race. The Dangai unveiled itself as a seemingly endless tunnel swallowed in darkness. Surrounded by looming violet walls that exhaled a smoky aura, the dangerous Koryu currents, the narrow path felt oppressive and eerie. Suddenly, as if provoked, the walls lunged forward, attempting to capture them in their shadowy grasp. "Run!" Yoruchi said. "Don't look back. Just run." He threw her onto his head and sprinted, fueling each stride with a desperate urgency. His peak physical condition kept him just beyond the snatching grasp of the violet, time-altering currents of Koryu. He wasn't risking using his spiritual power. There. Yoruchi pointed towards a glimmering golden door, shining like a beacon of hope in the dark corridors. "Keep running, champ. The only way lies ahead of us. To the Soul Society, we go." Fueled by her rallying cry, he slashed through the remaining distance and charged headlong into the glimmering door. They emerged under a clear blue sky over a Rukongai district. In the distance stretched a panorama of traditional Japanese buildings, a stark contrast to the humble cottages beneath him. The Rukongai was a glimpse of a time before stonework, while the Seriidii represented the serene beauty of Kyoto's historical architecture. He took a deep breath, letting the air of the Soul Society fill his lungs. "I'm finally here. Let's fucking go and murder Aizen. Nami, go back to sleep." Chapter 89, Rukongai. Yoruchi let out a soothing purr of relief, her velvety paws finally relaxing their grip in Kazuya's messy bed of hair. "You came through." Lifting a hand, Kazuya cradled Yoruchi's delicate feline head, his fingers tenderly tracing the contours of her soft fur. Never underestimate the resolve of a man who's survived a toxic relationship. Do you have any idea how much self-control it requires to hold back from snapping, or even killing that person? His words were cloaked in bitter memories of his grandfather, yet she misinterpreted them as a reference to his relationship to Aizen. What if my skepticism gave you the determination to pull through? You never know. Just admit you were wrong. It won't make you a smaller woman. Wait, I don't want to see you shorter than you already are. I was referring to your cat form, he clarified, a mischievous whistle escaping his lips. Your real form is perfect as it is. I'd have preferred if you were just a tad taller. Like a couple of inches. Now you're just asking for a beating, she huffed. Go to the ground before anyone notices us. Hurry. Heeding her urgency, he descended, a second sigh of relief from Yoruchi brushing past him. Well, she said. How does it feel to be back? Her question was more than just casual conversation. She hoped to pry open the walls around his past life, to ease the burden upon his heart. After all, for souls as ageless as theirs, the emotional wounds often ran deeper than physical scars. She had no desire to witness him crumble under the weight of his past, not as an ally, and certainly not as a friend. I have no idea. A brief silence, heavy with unsaid words, stretched between them. Yoruchi sighed, her third one since their arrival, settling more comfortably on his head as if it were a personal couch. Sharing your feelings wouldn't kill you, you know? I know, geez, he said. I hardly remember anything about my life here. I don't feel sad or overwhelmed. You don't need to be concerned. If you say so. Are we staying here until the next Shinigami recruitment process begins? Yup. Just head in that direction. I'll introduce you to my friend. The friend she was so eager to introduce was no mystery to him. Sexy fireworks woman. He was excited to meet her, and not just because she was among the most attractive women in Bleach. Kukaku Shiba was closely tied to Kyan Shiba, a man who could put an end to his entire mission. Kyan had previously seen him as a Quincy. Encountering him again as a Shinigami could stir up complications. Just kill him. Violence is the key to solving every problem. If it doesn't solve your problem, you simply aren't using enough violence. Nami's suggestions had turned murderous, and it was only his first day in the Soul Society. Don't go down the murder robo route, please. I'm sorry. It's too late for me. I have embraced the path of death and loneliness. I'll become the mistress of heavens, then give you the heavens as my dowry. Oh no! As they ventured towards their destination, Yoruichi filled him in on some interesting bits about their current location. Rukongai was the biggest and most populous part of the Soul Society, encompassing a staggering 320 districts, divided into 80 sections around Siriidii. The first district had peace and law comparable to the Siriidii. The same couldn't be said to the districts further from the Siriidii's reach. The 80th district was a violent territory infested with some of the most violent souls. The living standards in Rukongai declined sharply beyond the 50th district, with an increase in people wearing rags. The further a district fell from the center, the more decaying slums it would become. The poverty was to the point no Rukongai resident wore sandals beyond District 59. Kazuya felt grateful that Yoruichi directly brought him to the first district of West Rukongai, where Kukaku's Shiba resided. Soon, he could see a well-built house in the distance. Though humble in size, the house boasted a massive chimney. She didn't start using those hands yet. Kaien's death would affect many people. His sister, Kukaku, would shift to a deeper part of the Rukongai and use 2 giant human hands to hold up a banner with her name on it. He blinked, sensing an unusual stillness. Strange. I can't sense anyone inside. He tugged at Yoruichi's tail. She retaliated by clawing his hair. Stop messing with my tail, she growled. I'll kill you. Her tail to her was as sacred as a dragon's reverse scale. Calm down, Shihoin-san. Your friend isn't at home. True. I don't hear any movements. She gave his head an affectionate pat. Let's just wait inside. Isn't that rude? Who cares? Kukaku and I are like sisters. She wouldn't mind me barging into her house. From a noble princess to a trespasser. Shihoin-san's fall is a story worth writing. I'll obviously be the main character, she said with a laugh. Stop calling me Shihoin-san, or I'll start calling you Lil Kazu. He cringed at the nickname. Fine, Yoruichi. Better. They pushed the sliding back door of the house open and plunked down by the entrance. The home was warm and inviting, with a snug living room and even a basement. But they chose to lounge near the entrance, basking in the waning daylight. As Yoruichi stretched next to him, her tail swirled in rhythmic arcs. I'll take a nap. Wake me when? Yoruichi, I need to tell you something. He explained the potential complication of Kai and Shiba's presence and how it could disrupt their mission. Yoruichi narrowed her eyes. We're at the perfect place to remedy the problem. The friend you're about to meet is Kai and Shiba's younger sister. We can ask her to summon Kaien and discuss things. Perfect, or should I say perfect? She glanced at him and rolled her eyes. You impudent little kitten. Where did you find the furballs to utter cat puns in my presence? I'm still scratching the surface. There will be a particular time when I'll be meow-tearing cat puns as naturally as breathing. Get out of here. Away from my sight, now. After about an hour of idle chatter and the occasional cat pun, Kazuya spotted 3 silhouettes on the serene horizon. A raven-haired woman was making her way towards them, her strides flanked by 2 loyal servants wearing red hats. She looks pissed, he whispered. What ticked her? Yoruichi languidly rose from her spot, her tail playfully swatting at his back. One step at a time, Kazuya. We'll deal with her troubles first. She was prioritizing her friend over the mission, and he couldn't fault her for it. Fair enough. Kukaku's Shiba came to a halt before him, her hands resting on her hips as she scrutinized him with a hawk's intensity. Yoruichi, who is this gentleman? Kazuya rose to his feet and gave her a fine bow. It's an honor to meet the princess of Shiba clan. His words, carefully chosen and delivered with a hint of admiration, would have been a perfect greeting for a princess. However, Kukaku clenched her fists, her face twitching. With the temperament of a tiger and a distaste for nobles, this princess was ready to snap at anyone at this moment. Shiba-san, did I perhaps offended you? If so, I apologize. Yet, his soothing voice seemed to dissolve the anger before it could reach a crescendo. She became more composed than when she first arrived. You, she murmured, her eyes narrowing, clearly puzzled by his unexpected calming voice. Yoruchi, what the hell is this man? Yoruchi burst into laughter, never expecting this baffled reaction from Kukaku of all people. Come inside. I'll introduce him properly. Chapter 90, Return. Seated in the well-lit basement of Kukaku's house, they sipped their steaming tea. Yoruchi, as Kazuya anticipated, revealed only the bare bones of his story, his name, and his aspiration to join the ranks of the Shinigami. Why? Kukaku questioned, brows knitted in puzzlement. Last I heard you're banished from the Seriidii. Why help him get into Godii 13? He is a friend, just like you, Yoruchi responded, smoothly sidestepping the question. Let's talk about you, Kukaku. I hardly saw you leave this place. Facing some trouble? Kukaku lowered her gaze, the Kido-S light casting a heavy shadow over her face. It's a huge mess made by Shinigami. Many families are in shambles. Families rarely reunited in the Soul Society due to its sheer size. Most people formed bonds over centuries that were nothing less than a true family. Nothing unusual then, Kazuya replied. They do this all the time. The Quincy massacre, the Central 46 getting hijacked by Aizen, then Mayuri Kuratsuchi's experiments, Shinigami's scandals alone could fill a book. Kukaku's eyes narrowed into a glare. Yet you want to join their ranks? Fault them all you want, but they do the job of maintaining the balance, he said with a sigh. Let my worthless lives serve as a fodder for the greater good. Yoruchi blinked her eyes. Stop being a dramatic kitty. Kukaku, he just wants to experience the life of a Shinigami. He feigned surrender, palms up. Oops, I got caught red-handed. Kukaku rolled her eyes at their playful exchange, a puff of smoke escaping her lips as she took a drag from her pipe. It's not a laughing matter this time. Many in Rukongai were taken by Shinigami a few days ago, without any apparent reason. I've reached out to Kaien for help. Her older brother hadn't returned from a mission in the living world and her uncle Ishin was tied up in an important mission, leaving her with no immediate support inside the walls of the Seriidii. Yoruchi dropped her gaze, her heart heavy. As a former captain of Godii 13, she had a profound understanding of the Shinigami's reasons for taking souls from the Rukongai. It's mostly for balance. What caused it though? Her eyes landed on Kazuya and a chilling realization washed over her. He had recently slain an ancient Vasto Lord using his Quincy powers, known to eliminate hollows entirely. A Vasto Lord, being an amalgamation of hundreds of thousands of souls, could drastically upset the balance. I messed up. Kazuya was ignorant, but she wasn't. She had to warn him about the outcome of killing a Vasto Lord as a Quincy. What can I do to fix this? The chances of souls still being alive were next to zero. There wasn't any remedy for the situation. The only silver lining was that those souls escaped a mundane poverty-filled life for a chance at a better life in the living world. She sighed. Kukaku, those people, they aren't coming back. They are most likely killed. Say what? Kazuya retorted in surprise. Why would Shinigami kill them? Wait, for the balance? Yoruichi nodded solemnly. Survival of the majority over the minority. Kukaku, how many are missing? About 100. That's from this district only, Kukaku said with a sharp gaze. I don't know about other districts. Yoruchi looked into the distance. Lower number districts are more protected than the unlawful districts. I'm sorry, Kukaku. What are you apologizing for? Kukaku grabbed Yoruchi's head with her prosthetic arm and rubbed her ears. You aren't a Shinigami anymore. It doesn't concern you. Shrugging off Kukaku's hand, Yoruchi turned away. She couldn't reveal Kazuya's secret to Kukaku just yet. Lying to her friend didn't sit well with her conscience. She wasn't cut out for spy missions. Kazuya gave her a comforting pat on her back. What are the chances it's the repeat of that holification incident? He, of course, could discern that the imbalance was likely due to Baradin's death. He was simply trying to lighten her guilt by blaming Aizen for yet another thing. You doing this was also a part of his. Don't finish that. Oki! Yoruichi shrugged his hand. It's not zero. That's all I can say, she said, turning to Kukaku. We'll be crashing here until the next Shinigami Academy entrance trial. Any idea when that is? Kukaku frowned at his question. It happens every 6 months. The next one should be right around the corner. Every Shinigami entrance exam brought new energy to the district. Nobody wanted to miss the only chance to get rid of the shackles of poverty and live a better life. Great, he said. As for the rent, I'll repay you with my body. Kukaku's hands twitched, and she attempted to grab his head, but he nimbly dodged. You little punk. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. I was referring to my skills as a masseur. I don't need them. All right then, Kukaku Oju-sama. Say that again and you'll have a hell to pay. Her gaze fell on Yoruichi, who was gazing into the distance. Seeing the ever-so-playful cat looking serious was a new sight even for Kukaku. Yoruichi, what's wrong? Ah, it's nothing. A couple of days later, Kazuya was engrossed in a conversation with Nami when he felt a familiar presence. Well, he is here. There is someone else with him. With a cheerful spring in his step, he climbed the stairs, swinging the door open before Kyan could even knock. He was met with Kyan's bewildered gaze. Beside Kyan stood a young woman clad in standard Shinigami attire. She had long black hair which she kept tied up with a strand hanging down on each side. Her warm smile radiated a gentle, welcoming energy. Oh, Big Brother came with his wife. The woman was stunned momentarily before she composed herself and gave a small bow. I'm Miyako Shiba, Kyan-sama's wife. Kazuya returned a smile. Nice to meet you, I'm Kazuya. Kyan took a step back, his eyes scanning the house's structure, confirming whether he had perhaps arrived at the wrong place. Out of all the people, he hadn't expected to be greeted by a Quincy in his sister's house as though it were his own. Same structure, same design. Did Kukaku sell her house? Miyako glanced at her husband, and her brow furrowed at Kyan's reaction. To her, the man standing before them seemed like any other soul in Rukongai. She wondered if she was missing some vital piece of information, or if Kyan was merely being overprotective of his sister. Kyan? Kyan shook his head, dismissing her worry. Nothing, Miyako. Kazuya, did you die on the other side? And what are you doing in Kukaku's house? Kazuya held up a hand. Geez, one question at a time. You know what, let's just talk inside. I'll tell you everything. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in part 4. Peace.